Good evening. Welcome to this meeting of the Montgomery County State Delegation. I am Delegate Julie Plokovich-Carr, and I have the pleasure of chairing the House delegation. And I'm here this evening with my colleague, Senator Ben Cramer, who chairs our Senate delegation. Tonight, we're going to be hearing from the leadership of the Maryland Department of Transportation about their draft plans for transportation, capital projects, infrastructure, and other programs. We look forward to those presentations tonight. And then in terms of run of show, after that, we'll hear from our county partners, then from municipal representatives, and then from members of the state delegation. But first, let me turn it over to my colleague, Senator Cramer, for his opening remarks.
Good evening, and thank you to all of you who are here this evening and our colleagues in the legislature. It is certainly a pleasure to always welcome the secretary and her team. And I have to say, a very talented team, and a team that helps make those of us in the legislature look smart. And for some of us, I'm talking about myself here, that's not an easy job. So thank you for that. It's very much appreciated. And the whole idea this evening is that we're going to have discussion about what's happening with our state roads and state road projects here in Montgomery County. And with that, first I will ask everyone to make sure their cell phones, please, are silenced. And when we do get to the questions from our colleagues in the legislature, the secretary has already acknowledged that this evening they're going to stay on point and move quickly. And hopefully we will be respectful of that and do the same when the different members of the legislature come up to have their conversation with these fine people. So with that, Madam Secretary, I'll turn it over to you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chair. Good. All right, teamwork, terrific. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, as well. Hello, everyone. For the record, Samantha Biddle, Acting Secretary of the Maryland Department of Transportation. Thank you, as always, for inviting us here this evening to provide an overview of our 6-year Consolidated Transportation Program, more commonly known as the CTP. With me tonight, various members of the terrific MDOT team. Each of them will introduce themselves when they go over their respective modal updates. And as Mr. Chairman noted, our goal tonight is to keep our opening remarks and presentation concise. We know we have a lot of folks here who would like to engage with us. I'm sure ask some questions and get some updates on different projects and priorities across the county. And really, that is the focus of why we are here, is to listen. And so we want to make sure we leave adequate time for that. Before diving in, though, I do just want to take a brief moment to address the ongoing federal government shutdown and the impact it's having on Maryland families. Governor Moore is taking action to support and protect all Marylanders affected by the lapse in federal funding. Earlier this month, Governor Moore announced anyone with a federal ID can ride MTA's MARC train and commuter bus for free during the government shutdown. And we're also ensuring everyone is aware of protections for federal workers and vital federal programs. Resources on unemployment insurance, housing, utilities, and loan programs can be found on the governor's website, governor.maryland.gov. As for transportation, we are seeing limited direct impact, which includes a decrease in transit ridership to and from the Washington, D.C. region. But for now, MDOT continues to operate as usual and will always work to protect Marylanders, our projects, and our investments. Turning to our meeting at MACO, we're able to spend some time with county staff and other leaders to connect and understand how we can partner together to really accomplish shared goals. One of the things we discussed at our meeting over the summer were the permanent dedicated bus lanes along Georgia Avenue and University Boulevard. We look forward to our continued partnership and working with the county on additional dedicated bus lanes, which provide a low-cost solution to speed up buses and provide better movement for more people along these busy corridors here in Montgomery County. We were also asked at MACO about resurfacing areas impacted by Purple Line construction activities, and this past month, our district engineer, Derek Gunn, briefed the county on these resurfacing activities on 193 from Piney Branch to the county line, and our plan to resurface Wayne Avenue from Fenton to Dartmouth Road this upcoming spring. So we'll continue to work with the county on all issues and, most importantly, progress on the Purple Line. Turning to our draft CTP, MDOT is utilizing every dollar to make strategic investments in the Moore-Miller administration's transportation priorities. These priorities are enhancing safety, maintaining our system that is in working order, and driving economic growth across the state. Our draft CTP is an exciting follow-up to a productive legislative session this past year, and I want to thank all of our General Assembly partners here with us tonight. Through your leadership and that of our governor, we were able to secure roughly $400 million in annual transportation revenues every year. With these dollars, MDOT is stretching this funding by combining and matching it with federal resources and financing options to turn that $400 million into approximately $700 million in annual transportation funding. Without these additional resources, we would have seen sustained and deepened cuts to transportation, and thankfully that is not necessary. Instead, I can share that the draft CTP includes investments here in Montgomery County and all across the state. To further get into the details of our draft CTP, the balanced 6-year capital budget is $21.5 billion. This is a modest increase of approximately $300 million compared to last year's final CTP. The additional dollars are being used to take significant action to further maintain our system and keep it in working order, ensuring that millions of Marylanders can get where they need to, both safely and reliably. Some local highlights include the Georgia Avenue project in Montgomery Hills to enhance safety and improve bicycle and pedestrian connectivity. Had the opportunity to celebrate the advancement of that project with many county leaders and state highway administration earlier this fall. We also have planning and deployment of quick build complete streets projects in Burtonsville and Tacoma Park to further enhance safety and supporting transit-oriented development at several metro stations. We also discussed earlier the dedicated bus lanes to help transport more people and continued construction on the Purple Line. Before closing out, I do just want to also note that the draft CTP does keep highway user revenue levels at their current level through fiscal year 2027. Finally, MDOT is serious about safety, and that is definitely reflected in this draft CTP. We continue to push forward to expedite progress, to bend the curve on roadway fatalities and serious injuries on our network, and do appreciate the partnership with the county and just encourage the continuation of that partnership. Really, all projects, all modes, the work that we do together is just so impactful together as well. I'm now going to turn things over for our modal updates, and I will start this evening with Holly Arnold with the Maryland Transit Administration.
All right, thank you. And good evening, everyone. For the record, my name is Holly Arnold, Administrator at the Maryland Transit Administration. It's great to be here with you all in Montgomery County. And I do want to echo the support of the staff from Montgomery County. Maricela in particular, I think, is almost a member of the Purple Line team. And I just have to say how amazing and wonderful she is and that partnership is on the Purple Line project. And back to the budget, the prioritization of transit in the Moore-Miller administration's budget does ensure a bright future for transit in the state and here in Montgomery County. This year's draft CTP enables MTA to make needed investments to preserve and strengthen our transit system. The Purple Line construction is advancing. The project is now 82% complete with nearly 70% of our track laid and all 21 stations under construction, with overall station construction at 74%. And of course, the Capitol Crescent Trail, I know is near and dear to your hearts, is at 63%. In addition, the Purple Line Small Business Grant Program, which is administered by MDOT, is currently accepting applications through November 7th for the third round of funding. Since its launch earlier this year in February, the program has awarded more than $1.5 million to 146 small businesses along the alignment and will invest a total of $4 million over the next few years. The CTP also dedicates resources for the design of enhancement projects along our MARC system, including the Silver Spring Turnback, which will improve system reliability and flexibility and position MARC for future expansion opportunities along the Brunswick Line. As the Secretary noted, we are serious about safety, and we continue to prioritize investments that support a safe, secure, and resilient transit network. We recently launched our Rules of Ride campaign, which is a code of conduct that sets clear expectations about what is acceptable behavior when using our system. This effort is meant to help protect our riders and our employees, especially our operators, and reinforce our commitment to a safe and comfortable ride for everyone. Effective October 1st, riders who violate the code's bannable offenses can face permanent or temporary suspension from the system. And finally, our locally operated transit systems are critical partners to providing transit throughout the state, and we are proud to support Montgomery County by providing $44.6 million in grants to support your local transit operations, including ride sharing and bus replacements. So thank you for your time, and I'm now going to turn it over to Jonathan at the Washington Area Transit Office.
Thank you, Holly. I'm Jonathan Rogers, Director of the Washington Area Transit Office, which oversees the Washington Metropolitan Area Transit Authority, or WMATA, for MDOT and coordinates transit issues with Montgomery County. MDOT is a major funder of WMATA on behalf of Montgomery County. Programmed into MDOT's 6-year capital plan is more than $2.2 billion for WMATA's capital program. This funding continues to support the WMATA system's safety and reliability and also funds planning for transit-oriented development adjacent to Maryland's Metro Rail stations. MDOT, along with county representatives, have been participating in DMV Moves, a regional effort to identify additional long-term capital funding and policies to promote greater consistency and efficiency among the region's transit providers. We are coordinating with affected Maryland agencies, including the Montgomery County Department of Transportation, on coordinated comments prior to several upcoming votes on plan adoption. Finally, the Washington Area Transit Office is engaged with WMATA, Montgomery County Department of Transportation, and the State Highway Administration at an early stage to identify mitigations for next summer's red line shutdown of the Grosvenor, Strathmore Medical Center and Bethesda stations. This includes evaluation of bus-only lanes to speed up shuttles that will operate during the shutdown, building on the success of the bus-only lanes on Maryland 97 during last summer's red line shutdown. We, along with our partner agencies, look forward to engaging the public in the lead up to the shutdown. Now, I will turn it over to the State Highway Administrator Pines.
Well, thank you, Jonathan, and good evening, everyone. I'm Will Pines, Maryland State Highway Administrator, and I'm joined this evening by our fabulous District Engineer, Derek Gunn. And I want to echo the Secretary's emphasis on safety. It is our top priority at the State Highway Administration. Last month, we celebrated the funding in the CTP for the county's top highway priority, the $50.8 million safety project on Maryland 97 from 16th Street to Forest Glen Road in Montgomery Hills. Final design and utility work are underway, and construction is expected to start in spring 2028. In July, we also started on our first pedestrian safety action plan project, the $15 million Maryland 650 project from University Boulevard to Powder Mill Road. And we also had a public meeting that's planned for November 5th on our second PSAP project in the county on University Boulevard from Georgia Avenue to US 29. At that meeting, we'll show concepts and get public feedback. We're advancing design on pedestrian improvements along the 2.4-mile section of Maryland 124 from Maryland 355 to Saybrook Oaks Boulevard and Woodfield Road, including a new shared use path along the eastbound Montgomery Village Avenue. We continue to have a great partnership with the County Department of Transportation, and this last year we worked with the DOT, WMATA, and others on the bus lane project on Georgia Avenue between Silver Spring and Glenmont. Our crews were out this month also painting green paint, and flexible delineators were installed to upgrade the River Road bike lane in Bethesda. The project is among improvements identified in the 2024 Maryland 190 Corridor Safety Study. Additionally, this past year, we also performed a number of resurfacing projects in the county, including Maryland 355 from Locust Hill Road to Hubbard Drive, Maryland 29 from Dustin Road to Maryland 198, University Boulevard from Prince George's County line to the Maryland 320, Maryland 185 northbound from Aspen Hill to Warren Street, and Maryland 355 from Blunt Road to Brink Road. Work is also substantially done on the I-270 Innovative Congestion Management Project to reduce congestion through the roadway and technology improvements, and the northbound ramp metering will be activated by the end of the year. And we've completed improvements on the Maryland 185 intersection at Jones Bridge Road. This $22.5 million project added left turn lanes from Jones Bridge to Maryland 185 with bicycle and pedestrian improvements. Finally, Tacoma Park will receive a Kim Lanphier Bikeways grant of $212,000 to help design a bike connection from the future Purple Line station near New Hampshire Avenue to the new Avenue Bikeway. And now I'll turn it over to my colleague, Bruce Gardner, with the Maryland Transportation Authority.
Thank you, Will. I'm going to continue on the safety theme that we've been following tonight, and talk a little bit about the work that we've been doing with State Highway Administration. That's largely been on their plate to implement the ICC speed camera legislation that was enacted last year. Thank you, Senator Kramer, for that and for the work with you during session to create that bill. But the RFP is expected to be posted, as I understand, in early 2026. That will help with a statewide program for that, with a schedule anticipated to be the cameras to be operational sometime in 2027. So obviously we care about safety in the meantime on the ICC, and the MDTA police have been working diligently to up our enforcement efforts. The enforcement statistics and the stops that they've made in the past year are about 100% more than the previous year in 2024. So about 20 to 30% of those are related to speeding. We've also been doing some additional messaging on the highway. Both my recent visits, I've seen that on the signs. They might know when I'm coming, but it is time, I think, to just continue that safety message that we have on the ICC. In addition to that, we continue to strengthen our relationships with the law enforcement community. We've got to thank Montgomery County Police for their participation in some of those enforcement efforts that we have done along the ICC, and we are continuing those efforts through the end of the calendar year and beyond. But I'll turn it over now to my colleague Chrissy at the MVA.
Thank you, Bruce, and good evening. It's great to be here in Montgomery County. For the record, Chrissy Nizer, Motor Vehicle Administrator, and I'm proud to report that MVA's average wait time in all 4 of our branch offices here in Montgomery County is 5 years for the second year, 5 minutes, I should say, 5 years. That would be very long. 5 minutes for the second year in a row. This achievement is truly made possible by the dedication of our great employees. We continue to encourage customers to sign up for your My MBA account. You can take advantage of more than 60 different transactions right online at your convenience. However, we really have embraced this idea of a one-stop shop for government. And so at Gaithersburg, you can get your TSA pre-check. For our port workers, you can get your TWIC card. We also have an Easy Pass customer service center, as well as a veterans benefit office that has assisted thousands of our veterans' families with the benefits that they need. We also now offer at our White Oak branch office birth certificates as well as death certificates for those vehicle transactions. And also our limited service branches at Kemp Mill and Walnut Hill offer all driver and vehicle transactions now. And we're also pleased that earlier this year, we partnered with Montgomery County Alcohol Beverage Services as the first centralized location to accept Maryland's mobile driver's license for age verification. It's a pilot that we're really proud of, and it also is safety focused, ensuring that only those who are eligible to purchase alcohol are doing so. Earlier this month at the White Oak branch office, we were also proud to unveil a new butterfly symbol that Marylanders with hidden disabilities can voluntarily add to their driver's license, ID card, or moped permit at no cost. This optional designation provides our first responders with information to promote safety, understanding, and personal privacy. And just in a few short weeks, we've already had several thousand of those requested. So clearly there is a need, and happy to partner on that effort. Our outreach teams provide services to those who are incarcerated, as well as we are out there on our safety mission with highway safety events throughout the county. As the Secretary and everybody said, we are committed to Vision Zero. Last year, unfortunately, we lost 47 people right here in the county. The numbers are down statewide, and the same is true here. This year, there have been 36 fatalities so far, but we know that's 36 too many, and we'll not rest until that number is zero. In that vein, we recently announced more than $12.9 million in highway safety grant funding, and that goes here in this jurisdiction as well as jurisdictions throughout the state for those key issues that impact our fatalities. I'd also really like to commend Montgomery County, again, in the safety area. Your commitment is clear with your local strategic highway safety plan. We are in the process of updating the statewide plan. That'll be done in January, and we'll release that and work with you for any updates that might be necessary. So thank you for your time this evening, and up next is the Maryland Aviation Administration. Shanetta?
Thank you so much, Christy. So for the record, my name is Shanetta Griffin, Executive Director and CEO of the Maryland Aviation Administration. Also, safety is number one for the administration as well. And I want to also thank the federal workers that are working at the airport every day, ensuring that level of safety. The Maryland aviation system plays a crucial role in supporting travel, tourism, commerce, and jobs. BWI Thurgood Marshall Airport serves as a major aviation resource and an engine for economic development. With an economic impact of $11.3 billion, BWI Marshall generates and sustains more than 107,000 jobs throughout the region. Looking ahead, BWI Marshall's A-B connector and baggage handling system project, which is the largest improvement project in the airport's history, will be completed this fiscal year. Then we'll return much of our attention to capital projects to help modernize facilities, enhance safety and security, and improve the overall passenger experience. Throughout the state, our 33 public use general aviation and scheduled commuter service airports create and support jobs while connecting residents and business to the global economy. The MA's statewide aviation grants program primarily advances safety projects related to runway, taxiway, and apron needs for public use airports. MAA intends to administer $3 million in funding during fiscal year 2026 for regional airports across Maryland. This includes $15,000 to support runway lighting enhancements at the Montgomery County Airport. Now, I'll turn it back to our Acting Secretary Biddle. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Shanetta and team. As you can hear, a lot going on at the department. That does conclude our prepared presentation for the evening, so we'll just turn it back over to our delegation chairs to invite up the speakers. We will remain here for any questions. Thanks.
Great. Thank you all for that information. So first we'll call up our county partners. We have County Council President Kate Stewart, Chris Conklin, Director of the county's Department of Transportation, and Ken Hartman, Assistant Chief Administrative Officer.
Well, thank you, everyone. Thank you for being here this evening. Thank you to the Secretary and to the MDOT leadership for being here, and to our Montgomery County delegation, particularly Senator Kramer and Delegate Julie Polakovich-Carr. On behalf of the Montgomery County Council, I am glad to be here to present our transportation priorities. Vision Zero remains a top priority for the council and the county. We are grateful for the life-saving efforts, particularly the pedestrian safety action plan projects on New Hampshire Avenue and University Boulevard, especially given the lives in our community that have been recently lost to crashes, including pedestrians along University Boulevard. We appreciate these ongoing efforts to increase safety. We must continue to work to prevent future tragedies with proven safety infrastructure throughout the entire high injury network of state roads. This draft CTP takes a major step toward multimodal safety and access with the addition of $50 million to bring the Montgomery Hills project to construction in 2028. When combined with the 16th Street project and the Purple Line's reconstruction of the Spring Street Bridge, we are making great progress to a more complete network of safe and low-stress access for people walking, biking, and rolling through one of the region's most important hubs in Silver Spring. Thank you very much for the continued commitment to finishing the Purple Line and for incorporating our suggestions to improve the small business grant program as part of the project. We really do appreciate the collaborative work on that, and I'm really glad that I get to update my number now that we're 82% done. I kept saying 80%, but I'm now saying 82%. State investment has been critical in our ability to advance bus rapid transit projects on MD 355 and Veers Mill Road. These and other county BRT projects will require continued and consistent investment of lottery fund dollars into the State Bus Rapid Transit Fund and from the transit commitments within the American Legion Bridge I-270 project. We commend Governor Moore and Acting Secretary Biddle for their actions earlier this month to renew these commitments commensurate with the more limited scale of the Bridge and 270 project. Thank you very much for that. We look forward to working with MDOT to advance further improvements in the years to come, particularly for up-county residents whose significant transportation capacity needs have been a subject of much discussion this council. We are grateful for MDOT's partnership on implementing, monitoring, and adjusting dedicated bus lanes on state highways like Georgia Avenue and University Boulevard. These bus lanes only have delivered immediate time savings for bus riders on some of the highest volume bus ridership corridors in the state of Maryland. We look forward to partnering with MDOT on more projects that improve access and advance equity. Metro Rail and bus service is a lifeline for Montgomery County residents, and we commend the Moore administration and General Assembly for their repeated commitment to the fiscal health of WMATA, providing major increases to capital and operating support in recent years to avoid service cuts. We look forward to continuing to work with you and the rest of the DMV Moves Task Force to sustain and expand transit service to meet the immense transportation needs of our growing region. And I just want to say, as you all were doing your presentations, I am the Montgomery County Council President, but I also represent District 4, and so many of projects are happening in District 4, so I very much appreciate all the work from Tacoma Park, Silver Spring, up to North Bethesda. So once again, just thank you for your commitments to Montgomery County, and we look forward to continuing the work together. Thank you.
Good evening. I'm Chris Conklin, Director of the Montgomery County Department of Transportation. Thank you for the opportunity to address MDOT leadership and our delegation today. We really are thankful for the ability to share our thoughts. I have many of the same things to say, so I will try not to say them all, or if I do say them again, to say them at least slightly differently. We're really thankful for the commitment to highway safety that's been demonstrated by the Moore-Miller administration with numerous projects. I count 4 major projects now underway. This is a type of action that we've sought for many years under the county's Vision Zero program, and it's really gratifying to see this work come to fruition through the actions of the State Highway Administration. That said, it has been a deadly summer and fall on roads in Montgomery County. The administrator noted 35 fatal crashes. 25 of those were on state roads in our county. Of the 12 pedestrian fatalities we've had, 11 of them have been on state roads. That's not to say it's the state's fault, but the state roads represent about 12% of the road mileage in the county, so it is a disproportionate share, and we look forward to continuing to work with the State Highway Administration to take quick actions to eliminate some of these hazards and to take longer-term strategic actions to make these corridors safer. We do appreciate the administration and Secretary Pine's engagement with us on a strategic level regarding systematic changes to the road network so that the county's implementation of these changes is aligned with that of the State Highway Administration, and that will make a big difference in our ability to communicate these changes and to ensure that people understand how they're supposed to drive when they're working on the roads, regardless of whose roads they are. We are a big county. We have lots of needs. They're all detailed in our transportation priority letter, so I'll start reading that 9-page document now. I'm just kidding. I am not going to go through that, but we do welcome dialogue about any of those projects as you start to assemble the next CTP, knowing that very few of those are actually reflected in the current CTP, given the capacity for that type of investment. The partnership with the state on bus rapid transit has been tremendous. We are forming agreements with the State Highway Administration for construction and operation of these facilities. We have cleared numerous other hurdles in terms of federal process and funding eligibility, and we look forward to continuing to advance these projects, most notably on Veers Mill Road, where utility relocation has begun, on US 29, where we have reached 35% design on a selected alternative, on Maryland 355, where we're about to sign, hopefully later this month, the Progressive Design Build contract to advance that project. And so your support has been tremendous in advancing those projects. In terms of our robust water transportation program, we are making progress in negotiations with the owners of White's Ferry. We've been opening oysters now for almost 5 years. We still haven't quite found a pearl, but we think we will soon. So I appreciate the state's investment in this and the commitment from the Department of Transportation to help us advance efforts to get that restarted. I also want to be sure to thank all of the General Assembly members who are here today who have been very generous in finding funds for us to advance county programs and priorities. The tremendous success we've had in being able to serve almost 19 million transit riders and advance these capital projects is due almost entirely to the efforts you have done in the legislative session to find the resources for us to advance those programs. And I couldn't express more appreciation for that work that you've done, which I know is hard, balancing our needs against those of all the other jurisdictions in the state. Critical investment in transit is key to our growth. We're very appreciative to hear of the plans for MARC expansion of service and transit-oriented development around MARC. We're very excited, as others have already said, to see the progress on the Purple Line. We continue to struggle with some issues that go back all the way back to 2016 when this project got off the ground under different leadership, but are confident we'll be able to work with this team to resolve those issues. I also want to note the notable increase in activity in the Washington Area Transit Office, particularly under Jonathan's leadership, where we have seen strategic planning efforts come from that office, and we have seen much better collaboration of our regional interest and advancing the program for transit, both operated by the counties and operated by WMATA. So thank you so much for hearing us tonight, and we stand ready to continue to collaborate with you to advance transportation needs in Montgomery County.
Thank you so much, and good evening, and welcome to Montgomery County. Good to see Senator Kramer and Delegate Polakovich-Carr and members of the panel. My name is Ken Hartman Espada. I'm Assistant Chief Administrative Officer. Chief Administrative Officer Madalena was at a Spanish language budget forum tonight, and the county executive is out of the county. So I'm here to represent the administration. I want to start by thanking Acting Secretary Biddle for emphasizing the importance of safety projects. There are great examples that were listed and others listed. These safety and maintenance projects shape how our residents feel about our communities. The state of our infrastructure and the safety of our roads has both a practical and psychological impact on our residents, businesses, and visitors. We're very grateful for the state's partnership in advancing the North Bethesda redevelopment, which is in District 4. It's encouraging to see the shared momentum with the University of Maryland, with Metro, and Hines, the selected developer. We're working closely with all parties to refine the project and finalize the requirements for the $25 million U.S. DOT grant. We also appreciate the state's support for DMV moves. We support investments in WMATA's state of good repair and modernization of control systems. While we do so, we also need to strike a balance, ensuring Metro gets what it needs while preserving flexibility for other regional investments and recognizing the vital role of ride-on, and concur very much with the council presidents. Thank you to the state for the collaborative approach on rescaling the American Legion Bridge and I-270. Transit commitments, the continued community dialogue, as everyone knows, on design, delivery, and schedule is going to be so vital to move this priority forward. It's clear that we need to find a path to increase investments in our transportation system, as Director Conklin alluded to. I wouldn't be representing the administration if I didn't point out that our neighbors are investing significant dollars in transportation infrastructure. For example, the Northern Virginia Transportation Authority is investing $700 million in projects, and that's on top of VDOT's investments in that same region. We do thank the governor and the secretary for including Montgomery County representatives in state and regional boards like the Maryland Transportation Authority, the Washington Metro Rail Safety Commission, and the Washington Suburban Transit Commission. This representation ensures that the county is heard and included on important policies, and we appreciate the opportunity to contribute to the state's priorities on these bodies. Finally, we do extend our sincere thanks to former Secretary Paul Wiedefeld for his service to Maryland and to Montgomery County and the entire state, and also to Acting Secretary Biddle for her continued open, collaborative approach, which is the hallmark of the Moore-Miller administration. Thank you so much for hearing me tonight.
If I could just respond very, very briefly to the panel. I'm sure that former Secretary Wiedefeld is tuned in tonight, so I'm sure he heard you personally. But I'll just really thank each of you for your comments, feedback. Certainly, I think a lot of progress and shared collaboration between the county and state partnership and on all modes. Really, I'm glad to hear the acknowledgement and the safety focus and everything. You know, we are in this to continue with all the positivity that we heard, and also certainly want to congratulate the council president on the number of projects in her district as well. But I know that on the state highway side, we have obviously Derek Gunn here this evening and Mr. Futrell in the audience, who always sets that standard for, I think, you acknowledge the maintenance projects as well can often have, really positive safety impact. And I think that's something that we just always want to acknowledge. There's the capital projects, there's the things that have the higher dollar amounts, but it's oftentimes the day-to-day dedication and support of our teams in the field that really ensure, the safety and ability to travel for all. So thank you all so much.
Okay, next we'll call up our representatives from municipalities. We have Jim Woods, who's the Acting Director of Public Works for the City of Rockville, and representing the City of Gaithersburg, Sarah Peters.
Good evening. My name is Jim Woods. I am the Acting Director of Public Works for the City of Rockville. And this evening I am here on behalf of the Mayor and Council, who are unable to attend as they had a prior administrative session scheduled. But I appreciate the time and opportunity to speak on behalf of the city. I'm just going to take a quick personal side. For 19 years, I've had the honor of serving the City of Rockville. And for 21 years, I've proudly called Montgomery County home. My wife teaches in MCPS, and our 3 children are MCPS students. And like so many families here, we live, learn, and work in this community every day, which is why a reliable and safe state transportation system is so vital to us all, and it really touches our well-being. On behalf of the city, we wish to thank MDOT for the 4 grants that the city has received under the Transportation Alternatives Program, and the 3 grants received under the Kim Lampier Bikeways Networks Program. This funding has really allowed the city to advance some of our key programs and capital projects. The city also wishes to thank MDOT SHA for their support of the city's Vision Zero program. The city recently updated its high injury network, which includes 5 state-maintained roadways within city limits. The city will continue to advocate for safety enhancements along the high injury network and make sure we coordinate closely with MDOT for improvements along the state-maintained roadways to reduce crashes and injuries. The city looks forward to completing a federally funded intersection audit for 20 state and 10 city intersections this fiscal year, and requests that MDOT implement the recommended improvements that may follow upon completion of these audits. These improvements are essential to advancing our collective Vision Zero programs. MDOT SHA completed a study in the past that recommended the realignment of the I-270 northbound ramp at MD 189, which is exit 5, Falls Road, to improve safety by forcing drivers to slow down before turning right on eastbound 189 and Maryland Avenue. The City of Rockville requests that this project's design and subsequent construction be funded to improve safety at this ramp for all modes of transportation, particularly for pedestrians and bicyclists on Maryland 189 Falls Road. So thank you again for the continued collaboration with the City of Rockville and Montgomery County as a whole. We've had some fantastic opportunities in the past year to collaborate closely with our county and state partners. We host regular collaboration meetings virtually. They're very effective for us to express our needs in the City of Rockville, and we hope to continue that collaboration in the next year. Thank you.
He's a veteran. Chairs, Montgomery County Delegation, Acting Secretary Biddle, and members of representatives of MDOT. Thank you for having me. My name is Sarah Peters with HB Strategies here on behalf of the City of Gaithersburg. We want to thank you for your continued partnership and for the number of shared priorities that we see in the CTP. Some of these priorities include the Kim Lampier Bikeways Network Program, the increase in one-year extension of the TOD grant program, the additional $2.4 million from Montgomery County's ride-on system, the $3.6 million allocated for safety and resurfacing improvements along Maryland 355 from Brooks Avenue to Montgomery Village Avenue, the Maryland statewide rail grant program, the increased allocation for MARC improvements on the Camden and Brunswick lines. But of course, we want to remain hopeful we'll see greater long-term investment per recommendations outlined in the MARC Growth and Transformation Plan. And while we are grateful for these shared priorities and investments, we wanted to also highlight some of the city's concerns. We are concerned about the $16.4 million statewide reduction in HUR revenue funding. As you know, HUR is a primary state funding source for local roads and bridges, which is critical for maintaining infrastructure at the municipal level. The draft CTP projects HUR will fall from $459 million in FY27 to $351 million in FY28, representing an $110 million statewide reduction. The scale of decline will exacerbate the gap between local government's maintenance, obligations, and available resources. Next, Maryland 117, Clapper Road, Diamond Avenue. This longstanding project remains on hold. The proposed intersection, sidewalk, and shared use path improvements are essential to addressing safety and congestion in this growing corridor.
With traffic returning to pre-pandemic levels and nearby development accelerating, we strongly urge that this project advance to phase 2. Also, and finally, Project I-270, no surprise, Phase 1 South and Phase 1 North. The City of Gaithersburg is encouraged by the continued progress in the preliminary engineering and the state's ongoing efforts to secure federal grant funding. However, as federal funding prospects remain uncertain and infrastructure conditions in this corridor continue to age, we believe this is precisely the time to explore creative funding mechanisms, accelerate planning milestones, and strengthen coordination with local jurisdictions. So thank you again for your time, leadership, and support, and we look forward to continuing to work together.
All right, I think then we're ready to move along to our state delegation districts. So colleagues, as a reminder, this is done by random number generator, with the exception that the district that had the unfortunate position of being last the year before gets to automatically go first. So this year we're starting with District 19, Senator Kramer and Delegate Collison.
I thought maybe I fixed the jar with the numbers in them. Good evening, and thank you all for being here tonight. Thanks for making the trip down to Montgomery County and for the work that you're doing on behalf of our residents. As you know, we are elected to represent our residents and to hear what they have to say. So I'm here tonight to talk a little bit about what I'm hearing them say about the University Boulevard bus lanes. And first of all, I want to thank Mr. Pines. He spent some good time with me and explained many things, and then actually facilitated a meeting with Mr. Conklin. So I was able to get a full understanding of the project and what it is being designed to do. And we truly appreciate the vision of these bus lanes. I mean, getting more cars off the road, providing a cost reasonable method of public transportation for our residents, and as you've all said tonight, greater pedestrian safety. But you all know that change is hard, and particularly something this significant, particularly something where, folks who use University Boulevard as a main exit out of their communities, all along, in that 2.4 miles of University Boulevard, there are many communities that literally go out into that space and now have to navigate a very different space. What I am hearing is that there was inadequate community involvement prior to the painting of the bus lanes. And what I heard from both Mr. Pines and Mr. Conklin was, once the lanes were painted, it was a done deal. And I can tell you, the community had no idea of that. The community believed that this was a pilot. The community believed that there was going to be an assessment of the impact of those bus lanes. And this is not, I learned this was never the intent. And once they were painted. And so I have a little bit of a timeline that makes it clear that the community engagement was lacking. I think, we could have avoided some of the concern by literally just working with the communities to help them understand and to see if there were ways to mitigate the negative impacts of the project. So in 623, there was a meeting that MC, Department of Transportation, and I will say, I believe that Montgomery County Department of Transportation is the driver behind these kinds of improvements, and I use the word improvement here, but it's the state's responsibility to make sure and do its due diligence to make sure that the project rolls out in a way that the communities are involved. There was a press release in November of 23 in which MC Department of Transportation announced the pilot and saying that there would be an evaluation in December of 2025 to confirm that the bus lanes are beneficial on this corridor. And that was the press release from MC. So the pilot lanes were installed, and again, I'm using the word pilot because that's what everybody believed they were, in February of 24. And there was in August of 24, Mr. Aaron Rich, who was the MC contact person, the MC dot contact person, he resigned. He had been responsible for the community involvement, and then it dropped off. As of 11/24, there was no public input into the installation of these lanes, and the studies that have been done show, a slight increase in the driver's time coming out of the neighborhoods, but we also understand that there's been an increase in bus leadership ridership along that stretch of lane or that stretch of road. In 12/24, it was announced. Now remember, we've got a pilot that's supposed to be evaluated in December of 2025, but in December of 2024, there was an announcement by Mr. Conklin that the lanes were permanent. So, the impression that the community had was, disabused at that point. So since then, I know there have been a number of community meetings driven by the community themselves and, expressing concern and opposition to the lanes, and they're not feeling heard. I think there was an explanation to me that there was the possibility that the communities were conflating the zoning sector plan, which there were significant concerns with as well. Senator Kramer is nodding, and the bus lanes. When I talk with community members, they do make this separation, but I know that the county council is now making some adjustment in that zoning sector plan, which may, we hope, help people understand that the lanes are separate from that and that we need to deal with them in another way. So I think, in closing, process is important. And we now have a segment of District 19 where 400 community members turned out for one meeting. And the major topic of that meeting was the bus lanes on University Boulevard. I've been to a lot of meetings in my tenure in the General Assembly, and I, have never, except if it's a gala, I've never seen 400 people together to talk about one issue. So I think what I'm hoping now, and in my conversation with Mr. Conklin, he said when the sector plan was closer to fruition in terms of designing what it will ultimately be, they're willing to meet with the community to discuss what possible mitigation could be around some of the concerns of the roads, and I hope that the state will participate in those endeavors to bring the community into a level of confidence, because right now they're not confident that their government, either local or state, is hearing them. And so we're hoping that we can rebuild that confidence by making sure that we include them after a lot of this work is done on the overall planning of the zoning sector. So thank you again for your time this evening, and I'm willing to help in any way that I can to be a bridge between our community and the state.
Well, thank you so much, Delegate, for taking the time and just for kind of so calmly walking through what has clearly been a dynamic period of time for your community. And so certainly won't speak for Mr. Conklin, but appreciate his, approach and demeanor towards kind of the path forward, and appreciate you as well, kind of, making clear what happened in the past, what could have gone better, and mapping out what we can do to ensure a better path forward, and really kind of rebuilding that trust, because I think the trust in our ability to listen and deliver is why we're here tonight. And so I thank you so much for bringing this to the forefront of the conversation. I'll ask Administrator Pines to just talk briefly about kind of what you can expect from us in terms of partnership in the efforts going forward. But again, just want to thank you for your comments this evening.
Thank you, Madam Secretary.
Yeah, I want to echo, starting with just responding directly to your request that we do public engagement. We'll continue to coordinate with Director Conklin on the timing of that, the zoning and planning efforts, and when that's all going to be complete. We're not always directly involved in some of those things, but we'll make sure we get it right in collaboration with the county, and we'll happy to do further engagement around that. As we discussed when we had the meeting, this was our first pilot project that grew into a permanent solution. We did publish a lot of data about how the solution's working to improve bus service, and has had relatively smaller impacts on the mobility of vehicles through the corridor. That being said, we know any impact, we've seen that from bike lanes and other projects, people feel it, and they want to weigh in on that. So happy to have further discussion around that. And I do think that we did have some lessons learned out of University Boulevard that we carried into the Georgia Avenue project. We've had some lessons learned out of Georgia Avenue that we're going to carry into other projects as we move forward. So appreciate the feedback, and we're not perfect, but we'll try to make it right.
I appreciate the notion of learning from our experience. So, definitely that's my goal, is that we don't make the same mistakes again.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Delegate Cullison. You did a phenomenal job articulating the concerns that we have heard from the affected communities. So very much appreciate your sharing that and making sure the message was heard, and hopefully potential for helping the affected communities work through the changes. All right, with that, we are now turning to District 14. Delegate Kaiser, I believe, is representing District 14 this evening, and ably so, no doubt.
Oh, why, thank you, Senator Kramer, and thank you to both you and Chair Polakovich-Carr. Thank you, Madam Secretary. I want to thank you all. Tonight, I'm speaking on behalf of myself, Senator Craig Zucker, Delegate Bernice Miracle North, and Delegate Pam Queen, and on behalf of our over 140,000 constituents. To the representatives here from other districts tonight, I want to say I'm sorry that we did not provide a PowerPoint from District 14 this year. I know that everyone is sadly disappointed. I'm going to keep my comments relatively brief. I wanted to start first with a very strong thank you to Ms. Christine Neiser for the exceptional help and the constituent service that our constituents continue to receive from the MVA. So thank you so very much. I want to talk about just quick mention of the traffic concerns that we have in the heart of our district, and only at the major intersection of Georgia Avenue and Route 108, and how we continue to need more effort, time, and consideration to all the things that we can do to improve that intersection. And certainly the bottleneck that continues all the way down Georgia Avenue into District 19. Next, in terms, we have a question from one of our delegates in regards to the Maryland 198 Burtonsville Improvement Project, and one that will get back on track. As you know, we have a new development there in Burtonsville, the northeast corner, and so it's creating new traffic patterns. So again, looking for assistance there. And related down the line at 198, really with Blackburn Road, what can we do about safety concerns there? One of the council members and I will be sending you a letter soon about our concerns about the traffic on Route 108 in front of Sherwood Elementary School during morning and afternoon school hours. And while this was brought up in a meeting last week with State Highway, when our staff met with you, the question is that work had been done previously or a study or something else, and so wanting to find out exactly where we are and what was done in the past and possibly what we could do in the future. Related to that, thank you to State Highway for the team meeting with staff that happened last week. District 14 keeps a Google Doc of shared list of constituent services, so we look forward to all those district updates so we can continue to work through the concerns with them. And lastly, again, as I apologize to my colleague for no PowerPoint, I'm going to apologize for after hearing the Secretary's comments back to me. I'm going to apologize for leaving early before they speak. I have loved each and every one of you for far less than I've loved my team. I have to get home tonight, so thank you for scheduling me second. So thank you again.
Thank you so much for your comments, questions. I guess, Administrator Pines, I don't know if you have any updates on 198 or Derek, anything on the 108 at Sherwood Elementary. If not, we'll be happy to follow up, but thank you so much for flagging those for us this evening.
Well, thank you, Delegate, for those for bringing those to our attention. We did meet last Friday with a few folks, and we know that we have some homework, we have some follow-ups on several areas. You mentioned a few of them at Blackburn and 108. So within the next 1 or 2 weeks, we'll be following up with you on the status of most of those locations, and we can have a conversation at that point.
Perfect. Thank you all so very much. Have a good night.
Thank you, Delegate Kaiser. And now we're bringing up, we got a whole District 16 team here, Delegate Wallach, Delegate Warman, and Chair Corman. Come on down.
Somebody left their phone up here. Blue phone?
Oh, wait, Kaiser have a phone?
Yeah. Hi, everybody. I'm Delegate. Oh.
On the right.
Thank you. I work at my day job at the executive's office, not used to the county council. But anyways, hi, I'm Delegate Teresa Warman. I represent District 16 along with my colleagues here at Bethesda and Potomac. I wanted to say, first of all, thank you for the MBA for not being a headache any longer. I remember what it was like getting my license the first time, and I just had to renew it this time around. And I actually let it expire for a day, and I thought I was going to have to retake the test. So it was a wonderful thing that I just got to go into the office, and it was actually the day that Eric's law came into passage. So as soon as I got there, they even asked me if I wanted. You guys had the signage up and everything for the new law, so that was really awesome. But anyways, what I really wanted to bring up is a concern that I think most of you hear from most of us in Montgomery County. It's just for us specifically in District 16, it's about pedestrian and cyclist safety and people just driving cars along River Road, so MD 190. While we know that it's a major artery for car travel, it also serves as a key route for pedestrians, including students and cyclists. And honestly, people are worried, and they have a right to be. We see rampant speeding along that road, and the crossings that do exist, like the one at Pyle Road, they just kind of aren't enough, and the sidewalks are narrow, and the bike lanes disappear, and then drivers treat the crosswalks like suggestions. And we keep saying that we want to share the road, but it's hard to share something that just doesn't feel safe for everybody using it. And I just want you guys to just take another look at River Road before another tragedy happens. We keep waiting to do things with our roads to make them safer until after tragedies happen. So I just wanted to bring that up, and I'll turn it over for my colleagues. I'll do the rest of it.
Turn it back on. You just turned it off. Sarah.
Yeah. All right. I think I got it. Good evening. Thank you for being here, trekking out to Montgomery County. I appreciate your time. I'm Delegate Sarah Wallach, representing District 16. And just for context, that's Bethesda, North Bethesda, Friendship Heights, parts of Potomac, and Somerset in Chevy Chase. I wanted to begin by saying thank you for engaging with us on the Consolidated Transportation Plan. District 16 is an area in which drivers are trying to access major highways, meet cyclists and pedestrians trying to access other neighborhoods and downtown shopping centers. And we in District 16 are constantly working hard, as Delegate Warman indicated, to make our roadways safer for everyone who uses them. There are a few main areas of concern, specifically speeding, the lack of sidewalks and crosswalks, and overgrowth that blocks visibility. Chair Corman will talk more broadly, but I did want to speak specifically on a few issues related to speeding on River Road, Goldsboro Road, which is MD 614, and Wilson Lane, which is MD 188. So on River Road, there have been improvements. So first off, I just want to say thank you for everything that you've done there. The new bike paths have recently been painted on, and I did a drive-by photo shoot of that, and shared it with the team. So really, really pleased to see that. But there are also other areas that have had accidents. Most recently, under the bridge, there's a cross path connecting this. Is it the Siena Canal?
Capitol Crescent Trail.
Thank you, Capitol Crescent Trail. And the visibility there is really, really low. Accident occurred sort of, I think, dusk, nighttime. And so that is something I want to bring to your attention, that we need more visibility there because a pedestrian was run over very recently. I want to shift over and talk about Goldsboro and Wilson. Both of those roads connect between MacArthur and River. And lack the necessary sidewalks and crosswalks to allow residents to walk safely and get to bus stops and roadways. Oftentimes you'll have a bus stop, but there's no way to actually cross the street safely. We've had folks over from the State Highway Authority to walk and do a safety walk of that area, which has been really helpful for people to see right on the ground what our residents are dealing with. So I appreciate the partnership of you all coming out and taking a look, but more work needs to be done between the winding pattern of the roads, various exit points into and out of neighborhoods, bus stops, the overgrowth I mentioned earlier. These two roads remain a particular concern because of the lack of visibility and so forth. So I just wanted to end by saying thank you for your continued partnership. There's more work to be done on those specific areas, and we look forward to making progress for everyone who lives in that community. Thank you.
All right, well, thank you all. I'll ditto everything from Delegates Warman and Wallach, and of course Senator Love, who couldn't be here, I think agrees with everything that we are presenting to you as well. Really appreciate you all being here. I know you do a lot of these. You can't say it, but I will. I know they're a slog, so appreciate your time and attention. Although, Derek, you only have to do 2 of them, so consider yourself lucky, and we're really happy to have you working as our district engineer for Montgomery and Prince George's County. I'm going to run through, as I do, a bunch of different things. Obviously, Madam Secretary, respond to whatever you want to, but I'll suggest some things I'm hoping you can respond to tonight, and then others, appreciate your follow-up. You will be hearing from me. We've heard a little bit from Jonathan and the County Council and County Executive Representatives about Metro, WMATA. WMATA has a math problem, Madam Secretary. We were all involved in a deal with your former boss, Secretary Wiedefeld, 7 years ago for a flat amount of money. That flat amount of money has not grown because it's flat. So in addition to inflation eroding away at it, they've also bonded a lot of it. And so you're talking a lot about safety. I agree with you. Safety is paramount. We do not want to end up where we were 10 years ago with an unsafe metro system that there are track fires literally every day. And so we need to take some action. And for District 16, we have 5 metro stations that sort of border our district, so it's really important for our residents. On the Purple Line, I want to thank you for all the progress and the updates. Really excited that we've heard that the trail will be completed and I think maybe open prior to the revenue service on the train. District 18 will be up to talk more about this, but I just want to sort of back them up on, trying to get to more detail about how that's going to work between the state and the county so that we can actually bring that to fruition, which is really exciting. And again, I know District 18 will talk more about this, but we're really happy that MTA, Maryland Transit Administration, has decided to follow through on getting the trail open early. So thank you. Similarly, for the Maryland Transit Administration, there's been a little bit of discussion tonight about improvements on the Brunswick line, but I'm hoping if there's time, Madam Secretary, the Administrator could talk more about some of what's being contemplated there and what actual work is starting to move forward. There's also been, of course, talk tonight about the American Legion Bridge. I've heard a lot of people talking about a resizing or something, and I actually don't know what they're talking about, so would really appreciate, maybe not tonight, Madam Secretary, but at some point an actual update on where that stands. I actually asked for something similar last year and never really got it. I know you all are very busy. You have another very big bridge project that Director Gartner is obviously very involved with, along with the rest of you, but, would really like to know where things stand. And I'll just say that I recognize that, we have to do something within the next 10 years or so as a safety matter. So I think we all need to start agreeing on what that something is and start moving forward together. It sounds like maybe some people have agreed on it. I'm not sure what they're talking about, though, so looking forward to that update. Administrator Nizer, I'm glad Delegate Warman got our license renewed. Did want to mention that we have, I think, one do-it-yourself vehicle emissions inspection program station in Montgomery County. You have a new contract now, which I think allows the expansion of that program, so I think we'd love to see more of those in Montgomery County, where we have, despite my best efforts, quite a few drivers who need to use those stations. Before I get to some specific safety highway projects, I do want to put a little plug in for Chair Polakovich Carr. She had a great bill a few years ago on Vision Zero implementation, and we have this Vision Zero implementation committee that meets every quarter. Administrator Nizer chairs that. Administrator Pines participates. Director of the MDTA participates, but it's a really, I would just, for anybody who's watching this, all 10 of you, it's a really great thing where they look very closely at the causation of some of the incidents we're seeing along our roadways where bicyclists and pedestrians in particular are getting killed or seriously injured, and work towards solutions. To avoid some of those situations, I did want to ask, we've been working with Derek and Montgomery Parks on protection for the Cabin John Trail crossing at River Road, MD 190, but also Bradley Boulevard, MD 191. I think the River Road one was initiated by Parks, so they're very committed to it. But, I think we raised the need to do the same thing on MD 191. So I'm not quite sure what the status of MD 191 is, so hoping you can provide an update on that. Also want to bring up Maryland 187, Old Georgetown Road, and Cordell. A number of years ago, you all put in flashing beacons. We are supposed to get a pedestrian refuge and additional beacons in soon. I think that work was supposed to start last month. It hasn't started yet, at least not as of yesterday when I drove by. There's no visible work. In September of 2018, we took a safety walk with State Highway, and that's when that project came about. So it's been over 7 years. So I'm hoping that we might see the pedestrian refuge start to rise out of the ground soon. So no need to comment on that right now, but, hoping for some progress there in the near future. I did just want to raise a couple other issues briefly around the manual on uniform traffic control devices. I remember being in this room probably 8 years ago hearing from your predecessors that hawk signals were illegal under the manual and that we could not do improvements like that without violating the manual. And recently, we were told we couldn't paint the box at an intersection that didn't have a traffic light because that was illegal under the manual. We asked why. We said, can we ask Federal Highway about this? Federal Highway is actually closed right now, but State Highway came back and said, actually, we will do the painting, which I appreciate. And I actually was driving this weekend. Yes, I was driving on Connecticut Avenue, and I saw actually this already exists at Connecticut and Chevy Chase Lake. So actually, this is happening in other places as well. But it just makes me a little concerned that we're using the manual to say no to things that maybe are actually totally permissible under the manual and done in other places. And the latest example is hidden driveways. We're being told that hidden driveway signs are not allowed under the manual. And I wouldn't recommend a hidden driveway sign on 270 or maybe even River Road. But as you know, what we call state highways, many of them run through very residential areas like Bradley Boulevard. And so I'm just hoping we can look at the manual with the same flexibility and creativity that other jurisdictions seem to look at it and, get back to yes a lot faster rather than just, falling back on the manual to say that something's illegal. So with that, there's a lot of things other things I could thank you for, as out of character as that would be. We really appreciate the close partnership with Derek on all sorts of projects we're not bringing up here. We do have a great working relationship. He meets with us every quarter, going through all our different constituent requests, and we really appreciate him as well as the rest of you. And welcome any responses you want to give tonight, Madam Secretary, or at the time of your choosing.
I think we can knock through a few of these this evening. I will use my random number generator to start with perhaps with Administrator Arnold, an update on Brunswick Line specific investments, what came out of Mark Growth and Transformation Plan, what we're doing right now, and what we very much hope to be moving forward with.
Okay. Yeah, thank you. So we, in I know you have read, but the Mark Growth and Transformation Plan, those of you who haven't, I would really encourage you to take a look at it. It does outline what our vision is, 515 and kind of unconstrained vision for Mark service. And a lot of it is focused on the Brunswick Line because we do see a ton of opportunity there. So start with state of good repair because we have to maintain what we have. We have really focused on state of good repair on the Brunswick Line over the past year, including platform rehabs and station rehabs and shelters at a number of different stations, as well as some tire replacements on the Frederick branch. The big project that we're undertaking now is following with the Silver Spring Turnback. So that is a project that would permit future Brunswick Line frequencies to originate and terminate at Silver Spring Station. We do think that is a really good opportunity on the Brunswick Line because there's a lot of space constraints between Silver Spring and into Union Station, and we think we can get a lot more service there. So we're working very closely with CSX. So we're starting 15% design now. We do have funding for that to move forward in the CTP. Smaller project on the Brunswick Line, we are also coordinating with the town of Kensington on the overpass feasibility study. So moving forward with that project as well. And we're continuing to have discussions with CSX in terms of what it will take to have additional service, particularly midday service, as we know that there's a lot of opportunity associated with that. I can take the purple line if you want me to.
Save it for 18. Okay. Yeah. That sounds good for now. Maybe let's turn over to State Highway to Derek or to Will for some of the local updates. We'll give Derek maybe a little bit more time to pull up notes. But even before turning it over to Will, Mr. Chair, your comments on MUTCD are well taken, and I think are part of the broader culture shift that we're really looking to accomplish in terms of everything that we're looking at in terms of how we deliver safety projects. Certainly, we have those resources there as a guide, but we also have a lot of other tools and professional judgment that we can use when trying to figure out what the best safety solution is for any corridor. Also appreciate your mention of Delegate Plotkichkar's legislation that led to the safety reviews. I think Administrator Nizer has really taken to heart how we're working through those along with others up here and other staff who participate in those convenings, and we've had conversations just acknowledging what we're learning as we work through that process to make sure that we are really trying to find the most benefit in the analysis, and it will be an evolving process. Certainly, I think it's been a very enlightening one for us so far. But with that, I will turn it over to Administrator Pines and Mr. Gunn for updates on some of the local issues that Mr. Chair and other members of the District 16 panel have brought to our attention.
So I'll start, and then I'll go to our district engineer. Chair, I do want to thank you for the compliments too. As rare as they may be, Derek is phenomenal, and I recognize that, so thank you. On American Legion Bridge, what was referenced this evening earlier in the comments was that when we had our prior public meetings, if you recall, the segment went from the American Legion Bridge all the way up to the ICC. What kind of developed through the public engagement process that we had, it's been a little while ago now, I agree with that feedback, is that we truncated the segment of the corridor from American Legion Bridge up to the spur, took out the section that's really through Rockville, and then added into the CTP the section north of the inter-county connector, where really we heard a lot of feedback that the upper county wants to see improvements on 270. And as you said, a lot of the focus in the lower segment is really on the safety of the bridge, the multimodal connectivity, and the bike and pedestrian amenities that would come. So that's really what was talked about by the smaller program. In a way, it's bigger by adding in 270 North, but it's smaller in terms of those in Rockville that we're making those comments. In terms of Cordell, Derek informed me that our Office of Traffic and Safety is working with the county to deliver the materials for that. I know one of my first days in this job, we talked about your skepticism about us getting that project done, and Derek assures me it is moving in partnership with the county. So, and then on the MUTCD, we actually are actively working with Federal Highway to update the manual into the new year. It incorporates a lot of the safety improvements in the pedestrian bicycle safety front that came with the Federal Highway 11th edition. We've been, as Director Conklin mentioned, working hand in glove with them to update our speed policy, to focus a lot more on having speed management policies that will help us to reduce speeds on roadways and protect lives. But there is it's probably, I've talked to at least 5 of you in the room about the MUTCD at different points. In reality, most of the deviations that we've had away from MUTCD, from an engineering standpoint, we technically should not have, but we take a risk in that the manual, it is implied in law that we should be following it in order to retain our federal funds. However, we do work with our federal partners to try to get relief in that whenever possible, to work with constituents. So my team did make me aware of the hidden driveway issue, and I commit that we will take another look at that. Turn it over to Derek to talk about 191.
Sure. Thank you, Administrator Pines. And just to kind of put a bow on the MUTCD situation, we'll be alert to existing guidance and the shall versus the shoulds. We'll make sure that we take a careful look at those. I'm going to go back to the delegates' initial comments first about Maryland 614 and Maryland 190 on River Road. Thank you for acknowledging and mentioning some of the improvements recently that have been made. Very important project that just got completed. We just put the flex posts and the signage to complement the green colored bike lanes. So that part is complete. And to your point about lighting, that will be part of the larger project that's under design right now. CRP funding, so that'll be moving forward, and we'll be taking a look at lighting and some other conditions near the bridge, near Landy Lane. 614, appreciate the opportunity to go out on the walk audit. Some of our maintenance and traffic folks, they're following up on some of the findings from that audit, so you should be seeing some notable progress, particularly with brush and tree clearing very soon, if not already in progress. I'll shift to the delegate in terms of the 190 and the 190 and 191 situation. So 190, the PHB, the hog signal, that was permitted already, and construction can start any day now. They have a carte blanche to do that. They be in parks. Still trying to get a beat on 191 a little bit more. The last time that we tracked this, it was going through the plan review cycle, and my guess is that that's still ongoing right now, but we'll follow up with our reviewers and circle back with you, Delegate.
Thank you. If I could just on the brush management as well, I know that's a important topic for us at State Highway. Statewide, it's a big challenge. Historically, we utilize federal funds to remove invasive species, and that is something that we're reinitiating to try to pursue. That program kind of came to an end a few years ago, and so the team has largely been relying on our operating budget to do the tree and brush, and it just hasn't been enough to keep up with it. Derek's team has been out on the Capitol Beltway doing a lot of the removal recently, but we know it's an issue in a lot of your communities, and frankly statewide for that matter. So we're working hard to develop new strategies to try to get ourselves caught up with how much growth has developed over the years.
Thank you, Will and Derek. I guess just to kind of close out the responses in regard to the WMATA math problem, in a way, as you're hearing tonight, lots of discussion of unfunded needs here at the Department of Cross Modes, and also thinking about the transit system that we operate in the Baltimore area. Some could say that there's math problems all around, but we do very much appreciate the regional commitment and collaboration that has been brought forward through the DMV News Initiative. Appreciate Jonathan's work, Assistant Secretary Joe McAndrew in the audience this evening as well, and just look forward to the discussions to come and even the days ahead on that piece. I think that a lot of progress has been made there, and certainly we want to be part of the conversation going forward to make sure that all those safety needs, all those concerns, everywhere we don't want to head back to. I just want to emphasize for everyone watching that we share that same concern and commitment for the Baltimore system as well. So we will just be thinking through that with that statewide lens as we move forward with that effort. Oh yeah, sure. Thank you, Chrissy. So sorry. Sure.
Of course. So I know it's everybody's top of mind, our vehicle emissions kiosks, but they are very popular in Montgomery County in particular. It actually is the highest volume of any of our kiosks throughout the VEEP network. And so we do have a new contract. As the chair indicated, we are currently in the process of transitioning to a new IT system, which will allow real-time communication, which is great because that means if you go to get your VEEP test, it'll automatically be updated in your system, especially the end of the month. That's helpful for our customers who need to do that vehicle registration renewal. Subsequent to that, we do have the capacity to get up to 15 new kiosks in addition to what already exists in the network. And so we know that at least one of them will be here in Montgomery County. We will do about 8 with the initial rollout, and then see where we go from there. And so at least one of those 8 will be here. Certainly we'll make those decisions by the end of the year, and we'll provide updates to you in terms of where those locations will be. Thank you.
Thank you.
All righty then. Thank you, District 16. And Chair Corman, you put a smile on my face when you brought up the Hawk Beacon signals, because I think it was 10 years ago when District 19 was having concerns. I introduced legislation because I was told there were, and it predates everyone here, just to be very clear about that, that they could not be utilized in the state of Maryland. And within days following the bill hearing and the introduction of the bill, suddenly the State Highway Administration came and said, hey, guess what? We can actually do this. We don't need legislation. And but to their credit, within a year, those Hawk Beacon signals were being installed. So thank you for that flashback. And with that, we are now ready for District 18 and Delegates Solomon and Shetty, please. Nice to see you both.
You as well.
Jump on in.
The unenviable position of following Delegate Corman. And I'm surprised you didn't say anything about speed cameras on the ICC. That's what I expected.
Thank you for that. That was already addressed.
Going through the the Senator Kramer priority list. Good evening, everybody. It's a pleasure to see you all. Thank you for being here. I'll echo Chair Corman's comments. I know you have a lot of these and takes a lot of time away from your families to visit every jurisdiction. So we appreciate you being here and appreciate you being in Montgomery County tonight. For the record, Delegate Jared Solomon from District 18. And I want to start off also by echoing just a lot of thanks. We've spent a lot of time with many of you, particularly Administrator Pines and Derek and the team here in District 3. And I really just want to say thank you, because so many, I was literally on the phone with your team on Friday, twice actually, on the Grace Church Road situation and second, and just appreciate the unbelievable responsiveness on that. We got a really lovely message back from the community today. I talked to several of the traffic committee members in North Woodside who were ecstatic over the responsiveness and the closing of the median there. And so, I think we've had 15 or 20 collisions within the last couple of months there. And so that's going to do a huge service to the community. I want to thank the MC.dot team as well. I know they're putting in a stop sign at Second there also. And I think Council President Stewart had to step out, but I know her team has been a really great partner. So I want to start off by saying thank you on the Montgomery Hills project. 40 plus years in the making. It was really wonderful to be with you, Madam Secretary, as well, at the announcement. I guess it really doesn't feel like that long ago, but it was probably 6 weeks ago. It was still warm at that point. But again, it's incredible to see that starting to come to fruition, actually seeing the right-of-way being purchased, and your team, for a whole host of different things, I know there's been some complications as well, has just been really wonderful to work with at really every level, being responsive to the community. And, no major project is perfect. When you make an omelet, you're going to have to crack some eggs. But I think 90 to 95% of it is going to be incredible for the community. And we know that we've got your partnership and the folks from MC.'s commitment that if there are things that need to be tweaked after construction and after things are done, we're not walking away from it. We're going to continue to figure out the best for our residents over there on both sides of Georgia Ave. And I know you're going to hear from the District 20 team as well on that, but just thank you. That has literally been, I think, something we started working on before we were actually elected in the summer after our primary, and so it's incredible to see it actually coming to fruition. And sort of big and small things, I want to thank again Administrator Pines for your partnership on the signage, the signs on the Beltway and the signs on Georgia Ave, directing folks to the Silver Spring and Wheaton Arts District. May seem like small things to some folks, but in a time where a lot of our small businesses and a lot of our communities are hurting, everything that we can do to drive traffic, no pun intended, to our businesses and to our wonderful communities along our state corridors is really important. And so I know we've got some more work to do on that, but just really appreciate it. Again, I'll echo Chair Corman's comments on the Purple Line, just sort of broadly and specifically on the trail. We are really seeing progress. And I hear it from community residents all the time. I know we just had our recent round of CAT meetings, and folks, it's actually probably the least controversial CAT meetings I think that I've been on. They ended early, both of them, the Silver Spring and the Chevy Chase one. Yeah, that's exactly what you want. People had their questions answered. I know we're gonna see a little bit of a tough go around the Jones Bridge detour for the next couple of weeks, but that's because we're getting close to actually seeing construction being finished. And I know the Purple Line Partners team has seemingly a really good plan on community outreach to make sure that folks know about it. But I've had several people recently tell me, like, actually looks like there's going to be a light rail here, which is great. And so, we just emphasize again what Delegate Corman said around the trail. I know there's still some things that need to be worked out between MTA and the state and the county to make sure that the handoff is smooth. But, as we've said ad nauseum, the community cannot wait for the trail to be open, and the fact that you all recognize the commitment from the previous contractors, I think has gone a long way to rebuild the trust among folks in our community that they're really excited that, again, the project is moving forward, but that the trail is going to be back. And so the sooner that we can make that handoff, and happy to work in partnership to make sure that the county gets everything it needs to make that partnership really smooth. And then, again, hate following Chair Corman, but it makes it really easy. Ditto on the Metro funding. I think we have technically more Metro stations in District 16, but I won't start that fight. But obviously, it's incredibly important to our community. We have both ends of the red line instead of just one. So we want to make sure that the system is operating at its peak efficiency. I was just on the Metro on Friday and really like the new signs they have that provide up to the minute responsiveness and scheduling outside the station, which is really nice. And I think all of the new equipment has been working really well. So we just want to make sure that continues. And, I think our residents understand fees have had to go up. It is kind of expensive now to take the Metro. It's almost $15 to $16 between parking and a two-way ticket. So we want to make sure that money is going to good use and that we're supplementing what we need. So we just echo Delegate Corman's comments on that. Two things that I want to end on, things that I think are really good needs before I pass it over to Delegate Shetty. So first, I can't show them, but I do have my MTA Mark socks on from last year's holiday bazaar. So if you're doing that again, which I hope you are, for again, all 10 to 20 people watching, make sure you get ready, you get your holiday list set so you can get some wonderful MTA swag for your loved ones. But I'm glad to hear about some of the things on the Brunswick line, but many of us were at Union Station on Friday for the DMV Moves event, and I think what was really stark to me was Virginia presented and VRE presented, and literally slide after slide was, here's the new service that we have. Here are the new lines that we're rolling out. Here's the $10 billion worth of investment that we've done on the Long Bridge and all these other tracks. And the Maryland presentation was, we have a plan. We've finished this great study, which was as a result of a bill that many of us worked on, but we're still not there yet. It's just still a plan. And when you look at the overall cost of getting the service on the Brunswick line, it's really not that much. It's relatively small when you think about the billions that often these projects cost. And it would be absolutely life-changing for our stretch of central and western Maryland. Delegate Shetty and I were just out in Hagerstown this past week with the Appropriations Committee. I heard loud and clear from the Hagerstown representatives. We were in Frederick a couple of weeks before on the with the Transit Caucus, and same thing. Wow, it would be great to have more MARC service, and that's not obviously what would be transformational for folks in Montgomery County that commute into DC. You know, the one thing I will say, we were close to getting that midday service pilot, and then, you know, for budget reasons, obviously it went away, and we're sort of felt like we took 2 steps forward and then 3 steps back. You know, the example that I always like to give from my personal life, my office and my other job moved to Union Station. We live in Kensington, and I was so excited. I was like, now I can actually walk to the MARC station, take it to Union Station instead of having to drive to Forest Glen and get on the Metro. Sorry to Metro, they would lose my money on that one. But then I looked at the schedule again and was reminded that now that my son is in kindergarten, I can't make the last MARC train into DC if I want to see him to get on the bus. And for so many folks in our neck of the woods, in Kensington, in Garrett Park, and in Silver Spring, they take Metro instead, or they drive somewhere, you know, to be able to get on a Metro train, which is great, but that adds congestion, that adds a 5-10 minute trip or an extra hurdle that people don't need, where they could just walk to the MARC train, take it directly into DC. But we can't even do that because most schools, especially if you have elementary school students, it's, you know, between 8:40 and 9 o'clock. And the last MARC train, I believe, out of Kensington is, I want to say 8:35-ish. So just use that as an example. I think we have this really wonderful bones of a system. We just really need to put some meat on it. And so, you know, I stand just willing to do whatever is necessary. And I know our partners and colleagues up and down the Brunswick line feel the same way, really up through Western Maryland. It's one of the things where some of our more conservative colleagues are happy to work with our transit partners, and we don't have that tension between drivers and train users. And so I think if we could really go forward on that. And then the last piece, I think is probably the most important of all of the stuff that is going to come out of our district tonight, is just really the pedestrian safety nightmare. I don't really know how else to describe it, that we are experiencing in Wheaton and Kensington. And, you know, Mr. Administrator, I appreciate your partnership. You know, we had a meeting unrelated to this piece, and literally the first words out of your mouth were, "We know." And we're working on it. And Derek, you know, we've had so many conversations in the last couple of weeks with your team on this, but I want to just read the names of some of the folks. And this is all within probably about a mile and a half square radius within Kensington and Wheaton, from about University Boulevard and Connecticut Avenue up to about Veers Mill, and that triangle that goes over to the Wheaton Central Business District. So within about the last year, we've lost Blanca Parada Del Cid, Mari Nicola Morrison, Jacques Price, Hernan Cunhos, Ganja Prajarati, and probably I think the one that I think hurts the most for many community members is James Anderson, who is 16 years old, Wheaton High School student, who just had a gift for connecting with people. I think many of us attended the memorial service. I will just tell you, I sobbed uncontrollably afterwards. And he was killed crossing an intersection that is unsignalized. I tried to cross about a week later at an event, and I almost got hit in the middle of a Saturday afternoon, literally waving my arms, flagging what is become a 6-7 lane superhighway on University Boulevard with terrible sight lines. And that is true on University. That's true on stretches in Connecticut. That's true on stretches of Veers Mill. And so I know there are plans in the works, and again, appreciate the partnership. You know, Administrator, you're a member of your team, spent literally 2 hours on a Zoom with the Wheaton Urban District Partnership and the folks from the Mid-County Citizens Advisory Board. This was 3 weeks ago. And I know you all have committed to doing a public meeting when plans are a little bit further along for some of the improvements, but I just can't emphasize enough that I still feel like many of the things that we do and the safety things that we implement are reactive. It's after somebody gets hit. You know, the signal at Pendleton, which I know is going in, was after, thankfully, there was not a fatality, but it was a serious collision. You know, the improvements that we're looking at on the eastern side of University Boulevard, or excuse me, the western side of University Boulevard, are after we've had a death. You know, we're working on things at Ennals and the Wheaton Central Business District after somebody was killed. And, you know, all of the improvements on Veers Mill, I know, are contingent on a lot of the BRT work that's being done. Anything that you all can do, I know the county has publicly said they are going to do everything to try to expedite the sidewalk improvements there, because many of these people who have been hit are literally because they were walking in the street because we don't have sidewalks on that stretch of road. And so just can't emphasize enough that the small positive that could come out of these horrific incidents is that we make it safer so that we don't have any more of them. And again, I know you are dealing with roads that were designed long before these communities were the way that they are today. But small things just make a huge difference. And so the more that we can be proactive on fixing these hotspots before they turn into fatalities, the better. And turn it over to my partner.
Thank you. Thank you, Delegate Solomon. And thank you to the MDOT team for being present here in Montgomery County, not just tonight, but always working in partnership with all of us. We're extremely grateful. Derek is an absolute gift, and so is your whole team. We're super grateful for the many years of collaboration that we've had with you. There are some portions of this job that are so joyful, right? Like being able to send out a letter that I will give him full credit. He drafted on behalf of the District 18 delegation of all of the major successes we've had over the last couple of years in terms of like the incremental progress that we've made on some state highways that run through District 18. So it was really exciting, right? Because every quarter plus, we're on these regular update calls with your team to talk through these areas need to be prioritized. This tragedy just happened. This awful thing has occurred. We've been hearing hundreds of calls and emails from communities surrounding this intersection that this is problematic. It can get really overwhelming to focus on specific incidents one at a time and really just hear, this hasn't been done, this hasn't been done. But looking in aggregate at the things that have been done has been extremely joyful. And it's really in great part because of you, Derek, and your team. So we want to thank you for that. I will say that one of the absolute most tragic parts of this job is receiving an invitation to a child's funeral because they died on a state road, or doing a walking tour where we've seen still the markings of the investigation on the road. It is an absolutely tragic thing to face those families and know that, we've been working towards improvements in this exact same intersection that their child died on for more than 5 years, more than 10 years, and that the mother had emailed us 5 years prior, almost exactly to the date of his death. It's incredibly tragic. Nothing we do now obviously can bring him back and bring back the lives that Delegate Solomon listed here. But it is incredibly joyful, again, to be able to report back to a community the progress that we've made. So we want to continue to be able to do that, and we're really grateful for your partnership and allowing us to do that with you. So thank you. I know, we have seen some minor improvements on that University Boulevard area. The crosswalk is a little bit brighter. So I know that's been painted recently, and that's been really wonderful. And the speed camera is back, which people in that part of the area literally watch outside as the camera flash happens in the evening and cheer because it means that one more person is getting penalized for speeding and along that stretch where there's so many pedestrians, and it means that in the future maybe their behavior will be corrected. So and we're seeing more slowed down traffic as a result, which is really the ultimate point. So thank you for working with our local county law enforcement to get that back up and running. But really what that specific intersection needs is some form of signalized crosswalk. It's about a mile in between the two signalized crosswalks that are nearest to it. And a ton of people take the buses there, and a lot of people need to cross to get to school, to the parks there, to the businesses there. So we really want to be able to share with the community more success stories, and are grateful to work with you towards that end. Thank you.
And I will just say, Delegate Kaufman sends his regards. Unfortunately, couldn't be here tonight, as well as Senator Waldstreicher.
Thank you both so much for really everything that you shared. Can certainly empathize both on both the joy and the sorrow that comes on the the state side of the equation as well. But very grateful to have the partnership and support to continue to work towards the solutions that we know will have that positive impact and will have a proactive impact in the future. Would ask Administrator Pines and Derek to just talk briefly about some of what they've seen so far in their investigations along that corridor, and maybe just to speak a little bit more broadly on the efforts that we are taking to be proactive where we see opportunities to do so, to look at quick build implementations of things that we can get out into the field that don't necessarily involve as many back and forths in the review cycles, so that things are taking maybe 7 weeks, not 7 years. There really is a lot happening behind the scenes procedurally, and I want to give Will and his team credit for the actions that have been done to try to expedite our ability to deliver in a more proactive and responsive way. So we'll turn it over to him, and then we'll ask Holly just to talk briefly on CCT updates, so everyone watching, we still have those 10 to 12 viewers out there, can hear about that progress, and then a little bit on Brunswick Light as well. Delegate Solomon, you are absolutely correct. We did complete our Western Maryland part of the CTP tour so far, and we did absolutely hear support for the Brunswick line there. So, great job in lining up full support along the entire corridor. But Will, turn it over to you.
Thank you, Madam Secretary, and thank you for your comments. In this role, I share your sentiments a lot. It's very tragic incidents here. Chrissy and I every year attend the Maryland Remembers event and get to see firsthand what it's like for families that lose loved ones in roadway crashes. So we feel it and totally understand the sentiments you're going through. So thank you. In terms of improvements, Derek and team have been actively working. We had a resurfacing project in the area that allowed us to do some improvements along Connecticut Avenue. But we're also taking a deep look at University, Veers Mills, really the entire area for opportunities for improvements. As Delegate Solomon mentioned, we're expecting that here shortly we'll be able to do some public engagement and talk about that. We know that there's a strong interest for some signalization improvements in the area, and I would expect that we'll be able to do something in that spirit. Kind of to the Secretary's point, the statewide perspective, our focus to be proactive is both getting past just crash data and moving into predictive analytics. We've been spending a lot of time recently with the CAT lab at University of Maryland. They have great data on hard braking, hard turning, different types of movements that is used from when people are using this thing in their car. And we can use that data to help us identify locations that aren't just problematic from crash history, but also tell us the specific locations where the types of vehicle behaviors are indicative of things that should be addressed sooner rather than later. And so we're working on how to implement that and scale it throughout the state. Obviously, there's a lot of data out there, and looking at that proactively is really important, and we're starting to really dig into to migrate our approach. Beyond that, as the Secretary mentioned, we're really focused hard on delivering projects faster. Our first pedestrian safety action plan, Project Maryland 650, was partly able to get out of the gate quickly due to some partnership efforts that we had early on with the county, but also not at all to criticize Montgomery Hills, because we love that project too. But if we can focus projects on the safety elements, keep them away from large utility relocations, large right-of-way purchases, streetscape elements that add a lot of aesthetic pieces, things that will ultimately flip us into turning safety improvement projects into other things. We've been able to deliver so much faster. We've got a pipeline of pedestrian safety action plan projects. If for anybody in the room, if you haven't seen our website for the pedestrian safety action plan, it has a detailed mapping and list of where the projects are that we have in the pipeline, when they're going to be delivered, vulnerable road user corridor improvements that are more spot improvement basis, thanks to working with Delegate Charkoudian, we've got a plan to roll out mid-block crossing improvements in certain corridors. So we've got a lot of things that are happening, and we really are trying to narrowly tailor them to be focused on safety so that we can get them done quickly. Derek, I don't know if you want to add anything in terms of the anticipated improvements, but we'll be back at a meeting here soon.
No, thank you, Administrator Pines, and I just want to say a couple words to the delegation. It would be an understatement to say that we appreciate the continued partnership and the progress that we have made, but we know there's more work to do, very important work to do in that cordon. And it's going to be multi-agency. There's some work by Parks south of the Triangle that's happening on Maryland 97 at Evans. And to your point, we have made some near-term changes, but we'll look at longer-term opportunities as well and coordinate closely with you and stakeholders in the community.
All right, and I can address the Capitol Crescent Trail, trying to answer both questions. So we are still on track to complete that in spring of 2026. And ultimately, the way that is going to work to turn it back over to the county is we'll do a joint inspection. We'll come up with a punch list to identify, hey, these are the items that are needed. Once those are done to the satisfaction of the county, we will then turn it over to the county so that they can own, maintain, do all the things that they have done previously with the Capitol Crescent Trail. So we're working closely. I think you missed my shout out to Maricela, who was amazing earlier. And so we're working closely with her and the Montgomery County DOT team to continue to advance that.
Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you both. Next, we will turn to District 20, Delegate Wilkins and Delegate Charkoudian.
Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Acting Secretary, members of the Department of Transportation leadership, it is a pleasure to be here with you. Thank you for being here and for all that you do all the time and all that you do to get feedback from elected officials and community members around the state. I want to cover a couple things relatively quickly and then be interested in hearing your feedback on whichever pieces of them you choose to respond to. I want to start, of course, with a big, huge thank you and celebration about Montgomery Hills. And I think it goes without saying, but I'll say a couple things just in terms of what that project means, in terms of what it'll do for community, for health, for safety, for business development, for the climate, and a model of really what complete streets should look like. And as I said, when we had the celebration on the street, an example of the fact that we can do hard things. And so thanks for staying with the hard thing and continuing to work to make it a reality. I understand that there's still some pieces of it that have to be tweaked and adjusted, and appreciate that even after all the work you've put into it, there's still a willingness to continue to engage with the community on that. A couple of other thank yous. I want to acknowledge that I couldn't find it really in the CTP, but I understand that 29 and at Stewart Lane is close to complete in terms of design and going for bid early next year, if I'm not mistaken. That's an area we also lost a pedestrian again very recently in that area. And so, feel a sense of urgency to have that area rebuilt. We've been discussing it since I've been elected, and I believe before I was elected. And so looking forward to seeing that come to reality. You mentioned the PSAP projects, and I appreciate also that we have one of those projects coming together in the New Hampshire 650 corridor. That is also an area where we've lost several precious community members, and so we're eager to see that complete and also to see the PSAP projects as a model for relatively quick. It'd be great if we could make them even quicker, ways to make corridors safer. So I want to start with the thank yous on all of those pieces. And then I want to talk a little bit about the Purple Line. And I think really I've gotten to a point where I think that I want to sort of talk about two aspects of the Purple Line that are worth mentioning
for the Purple Line, because in the time that's left in its construction and the beginning of its operation, I think these are two things that we need to keep in mind. But also, I think these are two really important lessons and things to be thinking about as you move forward with hopefully the Red Line very soon and other projects, other major transportation projects. And so the first is really, as you've heard me say multiple times, I don't think major transportation projects should be public-private partnerships. I think it's unrealistic to expect that a private company is going to take on the risk in a way that's going to benefit the state and residents and taxpayers. And I think the Purple Line is an example of where that has not worked. I think privatization of public goods is a broader thing to be looking at. And I know as you're looking at, for example, paratransit and last mile, some of our transit agencies are looking at either of those potentially using private partnerships. And I think, I would caution against that. And I think that just continue to caution against privatization of public goods. And those would be two examples that I know have been in conversations recently. I think the state taxpayers and residents never win in that deal. And so I hope that you're very careful going forward. The potential toll lines and an expansion of 495 and 270 would be another example. I know that's changed significantly, but again, as I hear about the possibility of privatization of public goods, those are some of the concerns. The second thing, though, that I want to highlight, and again, the second thing I want to highlight is related to the building of major transit projects, especially rail, but any major project, transportation more generally, in a dense area, which is where we need to build rail. But also when we're building in areas that have already been underinvested in for decades, the implications and the challenges that it creates for the community are magnified. And so, for example, you already have businesses that are struggling, small businesses that are, managing month to month, and then you add the Purple Line and they just can't take not only the couple of years that were expected for construction, but 15 years of delays and everything that comes with it. You have areas where housing is already in challenging shape, a lot of affordable housing, but naturally occurring affordable housing and really challenged affordable housing. And so a flood, a break in a water main absolutely devastates and displaces people who don't have extra money to be able to make it through that kind of a tragedy. You have areas that already don't have enough safe crossings because the State Highway Administration historically has underinvested in them. So you have a mile and a half or mile without safe crossing, and then you add a project with contractors who are not held accountable to pedestrian safety, and you make already unsafe areas that much more unsafe for pedestrians. And so and then you have an area like Long Branch that has lower property values and therefore lower costs to rent the spaces. And so in Long Branch, we have two dumps, dirt piles, where you're pulling dirt and whatever up from the ground in Bethesda and dumping it in Long Branch. And that just further exacerbates the inequities that we see in this county. And so I say all that to say, it's really important to acknowledge the impacts on an already underinvested and an inequitable distribution of resources, benefits, harms, environmental justice, and it just gets exacerbated. And so I share that because I think it's important to keep that in mind as we're responding on a regular basis in our communities to the challenges. But also I hope that the department does better in the future, and does better from the beginning in the future. I will say that I think that the department, MTA in particular, is doing much better now than you were doing a couple of years ago. So I want to thank you for the improvement. It's not enough. There's still too much harm, but it is way better. And in particular, I actually want to call out and thank Martha Gross, who's been extraordinary, was in fact the second person on the scene when the flood occurred. and was there till 1 a.m. and then at 7 o'clock in the morning the next day, and then all day, and stayed with it and stayed on it as we really looked to support. Yeah, I know she's here. We really looked, but her boss is there, so this is where I'm talking. Really looked to support families going through that, and has since then really looked to understand the real implications, to our community. So we'll stop on that there. There's two other things I want to mention. First, I want to talk about the airport. I think there's two things that I want to talk about in terms of the airport. The first is Avelo Airlines. I want to encourage the state, as we're facing a situation with a lot that's beyond our control as it relates to human rights violations, constitutional violations, violations of due process. It's a challenge to figure out what is and isn't our responsibility, both as human beings and as elected officials, as appointed officials, as people responsible for implementing the Maryland Constitution. And I think that we live in a time where it's incumbent on us to really think creatively about what are all the tools in our toolbox that allow us to not cooperate with violations of human rights. And so I think right now there's, of course, the conversations about Avelo Airlines and what are the tools in our toolbox to send the message to Avelo Airlines that, we want the businesses that are operating, that we are supporting in our state, to also be supporting and compliant with the U.S. Constitution and the Maryland Constitution at a very basic level around racial profiling and violations of people's civil rights. And so, I urge the agency to, to use the ability in the regular contractual agreement that we have with Avelo Airlines to end that agreement. I would also want to talk a little bit about, and I know we have a meeting set up coming up soon, so we can talk more about it then, but about just the health and safety issues of what's happening on the tarmac in Maryland. And I'll just give one example, which is, when a refueling happens with people on board who are shackled, that is a refueling that normally we do not have passengers on board for refueling. But when there are passengers on board, there's an expectation that a plane could be evacuated within 90 seconds. And there is no way that a plane that is being refueled with shackled passengers could be evacuated within 90 seconds. And in fact, the staff of the airlines, of the contractors that are flying some of these flights with people who are shackled on them have been told to leave the passengers and to get off themselves. And so I think we have an ability in Maryland to establish health and safety guidelines for the refueling operations and for other contractors who are operating in our state. And I think it's incumbent on us to really find the ways and the pathways to do that. And I really hope to be able to work with MDOT, with the Maryland Aviation Administration, to do those things. And finally, I'd like to end on something that I hope is a good idea, but it's also really cute. And that is, I just wonder why we're not using goats more to take care of the invasive species. And I know you still need to pay for them and you have to put up fencing, but I feel like it's a win-win because it takes care of invasive species, and it just would make people so happy looking at goats, wandering around, munching. So I hope the State Highway Administration will increase the use of goats for invasive species management.
If you want to go, or otherwise we can respond to Delegate Tarkanian first. All right, thank you so much. So thank you for kind of highlighting, a broad range of some of the challenges that we face on a couple of different modes. I think, what we've pointed out in the purple line in synopsis is that projects with a great deal of complexity, both on the technical delivery level and so the impact that it's had on communities. Grateful to hear that things are improving, but agree that there's always more that we can do to work better together. We are so grateful for the partnership that we have, both with our local elected leaders as well as with Montgomery County DOT. I want to just thank I think I just combined thank and echo into a sentence there. I want to thank and echo your positive remarks on Martha's engagement in the flood incident that we had over the summer. Thank you personally for your attention to that challenge as well as County DOT and so many other county offices who all mobilized so quickly to make sure that families were put in touch with the resources that they need to work through a really challenging time. And I think, it was very appropriate of you to highlight that experience as one that does emphasize the nature of some of the impacts of doing this type of work in a community that is already economically challenged. Just want you to know that we are taking that fully to heart. I don't know, Holly, if there's anything else in terms of what the project team is working through right now, but definitely hear you loud and clear on that.
Yeah, no, I just want to again echo, the appreciation for your partnership on this. I know it has been frustrating over the years, but you continue to engage with us and continue to work to help us be better. And so I just want to say thank you for that. As you know, from our conversations, we are challenging the team to continue to try and be better. We are 82% complete, so we are going to be out of your hair, and the big dirt pile will be going away soon. So I think right now the only way out is through, and that's what we're all really pushing for, is as quickly as possible. We do also recognize the impacts that it has, and I thank Martha for going out and being the boots on the ground. I've challenged her a few times to go, hey, see what we can do in this area in a way that we haven't done it before. Let's get some new fresh eyes on here, and so we are continuing to do that. But yes, it is a large, complex project with a complex history that we're all kind of working through, and so definitely a lot of lessons learned for other things that we're doing as an agency, and I think as a state.
Yeah, lessons learned as well on the contracting comments, and I would also say that even when we know we're through kind of this hard construction phase of the Purple Line, that there are still going to be efforts to continue to look at some of these key corridors where you've highlighted the spacing that we have between signalized crossings, things like that. We know that there's going to need to be continued, both collaboration on, making sure that we are working with communities to make sure that they understand and can hopefully embrace what we hope is an asset for them with the connectivity of the Purple Line in the future. On the Avello piece, I think that in terms of, you highlighted and encapsulated very well some of the challenges that we are all facing, more broadly. And this is one that has certainly been brought to the attention of the Maryland Aviation Administration, of the department, and of, the Moore administration. And so I think you're framing of we need to look at what tools we have available and how we can use those tools and options to address these challenges. I think that is where we are in that evaluation. The meeting that you references on the refueling standards. I don't know, Ms. Griffin, if you would have any either comments or remarks on either of those topic areas for tonight, but just do want to thank you and appreciate your advocacy.
No, I want to duplicate to exactly what the secretary said. There's a lot of tools that we're looking into as to avenues that we can address this. Health and safety is very important to us as well, too. I'm not familiar with this refueling issue that you brought, so I do need to do a little research on that. But again, health and safety is very important, and that's how we're talking about all of these issues as to how we can do anything in regards to that. And we're looking at all the tools available to us. But I thank you very much for bringing those, especially the fueling piece, to our attention, and we'll do some research there.
I will also say that my husband has suggested that we get an eco goat as well, and so never a bad time for an interesting pilot, and I think it would definitely make people smile. Delegate Wilkins.
Thank you so much. Greetings, Madam Secretary, who is actually a fellow Blue Hen. We are building our caucus here in Maryland. I want to recognize and thank the leadership of the delegation. Greetings, Mr. Chair and Madam Chair, and also all of the members of the leadership of MDOT that are present. I want to start off with kudos to the Maryland Vehicle Administration for all of the partnership and work around Eric's ID law. I know that Eric's ID law was addressed at the beginning, and really want to thank Administrator Nizer for her strong partnership, Sean as well. I think that this is a model in how the legislature and the agency can work together around crafting strong legislation, and most importantly, making sure that we get the information out to the community so they're able to access this really important resource and tool. whole. So thank you for all of your work and engagement with us on making Eric's ID law a success. I want to echo the comments of Delegate Charkoudian and also mention that we're speaking on behalf of Delegate Moon and Senator Smith as well, the whole District 20 team, around the impacts of the Purple Line. I think every year, this is my 8th year in the legislature, the Purple Line has been a huge topic for our district, and the impacts of it cannot be overstated. The traffic, the construction, the congestion, the potholes, the business impacts, and that in District 20, we are ready for this to come to a close and open the doors on the Purple Line. I'm disappointed to see what feels like an increase in impacts that are leading to displacement, homeowners that are seeing flooding. I don't quite understand why at this point in construction we're now seeing these types of issues and major errors that are impacting our constituents financially, and the ability to enjoy their homes. And so I would like to understand what we are doing to make sure that these types of issues and accidents and flooding that is taking place due to Purple Line construction don't happen for our residents. I also would like it stated here, if it hasn't been already, but I'd like it to be a part of my comments, just a reiteration. I know we're 82% complete, but our timeline, our specific timeline around completion, so that our constituents that are hanging in there can have a very clear sense here as part of this conversation around when that would be. In addition, kudos to the team for working with us and taking our feedback around the Purple Line grant program. That was legislation led by the District 20 team that I was able to sponsor, that provided the original grants, the first in the state. And we appreciate the iteration and the feedback that has been taken around the newest round of grants that are being provided to impacted businesses, and the work together and making sure that we that our businesses are able to benefit from those grants. So I do thank you for that, and that we need to continue to work on making our businesses as whole as possible, because they have suffered a lot over this construction. Last couple of comments. I really just want to get to basics. A very small story is that at the end of the legislative session, a lot of us send out end of session letters to let our constituents know what we worked on, all the good work we did during session. And I sent mine out, pouring my heart out about all of the wonderful bills the legislature passed. And one of my constituents responded and said, "That's all great, but my state road has not been, the grass has not been cut for months now, and that's what I care about, and all these things that you're talking about is great, but that's not done." And so I share that here because I think that some of the basics around paved roads, clean neighborhoods, to the extent that the state is responsible for those roads and those streets, as well as keeping our areas beautiful and neat and grass cut, is something simple and basic, but really important to the residents. And so I would like to understand how in this proposed CTP, how we are making sure that those basics are happening in a way that we don't have to advocate, but that they're happening for our constituents on a regular basis. Finally, I'd like to raise the DBE program and the recent ruling that rolls back really important protections and the really important program around disadvantaged business enterprises from the federal level and the impact at the state level. I want to thank Ms. Griffin for participating in the Black Caucus's event over the weekend, where she was able to share a little bit more with those businesses. But I'd like to understand from the state perspective the types of resources and efforts that will be put into ensuring that our businesses are able to comply, recertify, and continue to thrive under that program. And I will close by just associating myself with the comments of my colleague around Avelo Airlines, but I have heard the response to that, so we'll talk more offline. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you so much for the questions and comments. I'll first go to Administrator Arnolds with Purple Line, kind of anything to offer on project controls, project schedule. Administrator Pines, if you can then cover for us, a little bit on just kind of the basics that we're talking about in terms of litter and pavement, and then maybe just I covered it very briefly at the onset, but just even some of the specific pavement work that we are going to be doing in conjunction with the areas impacted by Purple Line, because I think there's a nexus there for that on a more granular level. To your comments on the DBE program. So as I'm sure you're aware from some of the outreach that we've done so far, but make sure everyone listening and in the room is present. Currently, we are in compliance with the United States Department of Transportation's interim final rule that was recently issued that does have this serious impact upon the DBE program. State of Maryland has, I think, the largest program in the country, and so it is of the shared utmost importance to us that we are providing the resources for firms to be able to recertify and get back on track. It is such a vital resource that we have here in Maryland. We are working very closely with the new department where our MBE program had just shifted as of October 1, working very closely in conjunction to make sure that we're staffing up and looking at additional opportunities to even staff up even more to provide those resources. We'll be hosting a small business summit co-sponsored by some other state agencies and the governor's office on November 11th. And this was a summit that we had already planned to convene, but I think given this action taken at the federal level, we know that folks are going to be looking for more resources and support for their businesses as well. So we're working to incorporate as many of these pieces of information and the next steps forward through that event and through targeted outreach to each and every firm. It is going to take some time, but we are committed to working through that with every one of these small businesses that's been impacted.
Good evening. So regarding the Purple Line construction and additional controls that we're putting in, so one of the reasons that you're seeing more happening right now in Montgomery County is because that is where the bulk of the construction is. We are actually done with laying track in Prince George's, so we're still doing a lot of the civil construction and the heavy civil construction in Montgomery County right now. Unfortunately, the incident with the flooding, we were digging anytime you're underground while we do all of our due diligence. Sometimes there are unmarked utilities, and this was a case where there was an unmarked utility. We're working really closely with the contractor on different ways and areas where they can hand dig instead of using machines, right? So like you can sense things that you're going to hit it versus a machine. So we're working very closely with them on that, especially areas where there could be a potential impact. So we can't, go back in time and undo what happened there, but we are trying to prevent things like that from going forward. And we do know the impact on that. The team was doing everything we possibly can. We are working closely to prioritize their claims through insurance. I think a number of the claims have been out, and we do know that all the folks have now been relocated, but it is, moving is hard. All the things associated with it is hard. And so we do fully understand that. And appreciate, the partnership with the delegation, with Montgomery County to get everyone kind of back where they need to be. Regarding the grant program, Assistant Secretary Jacqueline Hartman gets a lot of the credit for the grant program and the changes that have been made. And I think we're on round 3, and I'm sure there will still be, I'm going to speak for her, I'm sure there's still going to be more comments and changes. And so we look forward to that feedback so that we can continue to make it as successful as possible, because we do know the impact that we're having on the small businesses in this area. Schedule purple. Thank you. And yes, so, I think we've said several times, testing is the piece where we don't really know what we don't know, the systems testing and systems integration. As of today, the schedule still says we're going to complete the end of 2027. We're doing everything we possibly can to hit that date. But there's just a lot of unknown when it comes to the systems integration and the handoff between like the vehicles and the multiple different traffic signals and the catenary and all the different other things that are happening on the project. So we're doing what we can to make sure we're ready. But you just never know what you don't know.
Good news on the vehicle front.
Vehicles, we are going to have all of our vehicles by the end of this year. If you go see the yard, which I encourage everyone to do, it is full of trains and it looks very, very real. So it's exciting.
And they're making their journeys outside the yard.
Yes.
Which is an important first step in that systems phase. Well.
All right, back to the basics. We'll talk operations side of the house. So with the CTP, there was an inclusion in the 6th year, thanks to the leadership of the legislature and the governor, bringing forth $1.4 billion in additional funding to state highway for system preservation needs. On the pavement side of things, that does include $290 million in increases for statewide pavement and resurfacing. That is a great thing. That puts us in a better place to where we will be able to do a lot more paving statewide. However, and it is even amplified with federal funding. However, as was published in the 2025 MDOT attainment report, our asset management analysis still projects that statewide we will have declining pavement conditions with that funding level. On the operations side, in terms of litter, mowing, tree and brush, some of those types of areas, I grew up on a farm. I would love to have goats. I had them take me back to my days as a kid, but not sure, as the secretary said, how it might conflict with our wildlife crossing goals. We'll have to look at that. So in terms of our litter and mowing, so we are currently funded to support 4 to 6 week cycles. We state that very plainly when customers send us customer care management tickets to address those areas. We generally respond that we maintain our cycles. We can't pop around to areas to get out of cycle and then really fall behind in other areas. So we stick to those schedules. They're weather dependent, obviously, but in the litter front, we've been doing a lot of outreach lately on documenting how quickly litter is reaccumulating in areas. I encourage, if you want to look at SHA's social media page, we went out, took before, during, after, and then came back 1 week later to document how much litter had reaccumulated at the exact same locations, and it's very substantive in 1 week's time. We cannot keep up with weekly litter cleanup. We already spend $18 million a year on litter. So we're trying to focus more on the enforcement front on the litter side of things, working in partnership with the police, looking at opportunities with universities. There are some technologies that are developing with cameras where you could potentially capture the moment when someone's littering and apply enforcement. Currently, litter is in criminal law, and so that gets very complicated with police. It's not like issuing a citation off of a camera for a car speeding. It's a totally different animal to pursue litter infractions, and so that's one area. We're trying to do a lot more outreach. We did revamp our Adopt a Highway program, where previously you had to fill out paper applications, and it was a little bit of an arduous process. It's now all electronic. We've got a GIS map that shows you what segments are available for adopting. And so we're modernizing, trying to take advantage of opportunities where it's not just throwing more money at the problem, but getting the community engaged and helping with word of mouth. So it's a big challenge for us. I do actually encourage all of you to just be really honest that we do not mow at a level that makes it look like your neighbor's front lawn. We're doing operational mowing for safety purposes. So a couple of thoughts there. Secretary, I thought you asked me to say something else, but I think I'll turn it over to Derek on anything else you want to add.
Thank you, Administrator Pines. And actually, you'd be surprised that we have more internal conversations about goat management than people would think, but it does happen. Just want to touch a little bit on the paving in District 3. I'm encouraged by our paving program. It's one of the more robust, I think, in the region. I can follow up with you about what fiscal year 26 looks like in terms of that program and opportunities in District 20. I know that last year we had some success in Tacoma Park on Maryland 410. We did some deep patching work over there, and then we provided some relief and some support to our Purple Line folks on University Boulevard from Riggs all the way through the Montgomery County line. And I think it was said a little bit earlier that we'll be taking a look at Wayne Avenue in the spring, but I can follow up with you about more specifics for this upcoming fiscal year.
All right, thank you very much. Now we are ready for the District 15 team. Delegate Foley, Delegate Chee, Delegate Fraser Hidalgo. please jump on in. All right, somebody rock and roll. There you go.
Okay, hi. Thank you. First of all, again, thank you all for being here. And Secretary Biddle, thank you for all the work that the department's doing and for your interest in Montgomery County. And also as a member of the Environment and Transportation Committee, thank you for your partnership with us. I don't think we can get into the Metro sweepstakes here because we have no Metro stations in District 15. We have very little public transportation in District 15, very little transit. What we do have, one of the things we do have is we do have the MARC train, and so I just want to echo Delegate Solomon's comments about how important it is to make that much more accessible and to expand that Brunswick line. The Germantown station, as you probably know, is a really big station, really a well-used station on the entire MARC line, and that is in our district, and many people rely on it. So I just wanted to echo what he said. Also, I did want to thank you for your work on River Road, the projects there. River Road is 190 does continue to be of concern. I hope that work goes west of Bethesda and Potomac, because there have been some fatalities there with bicyclists, and I brought this up in the past that we do need to make some improvements there for bicycle and pedestrian safety, particularly bicycle safety on 190. Also along those lines, I do want to bring to your attention 189 Falls Road, which is even worse than River Road for pedestrian and bicycle safety. There's absolutely no shoulder or space to walk or ride on that road in many portions of that road south of 270. And I want to bring to your attention 2 crosswalks that are there. Many of the crosswalks on 189 are at intersections with stoplights, but there are 2 that I'm aware of in our district that don't have any markings, and in fact, there's not even a sign that warns you that the crosswalk is coming up. There's a sign at the crosswalk, but there's no sign warning you that, like you usually see, that there's a crosswalk, and there's no hawk signal or anything like that. Needless to say, those crosswalks are at Woodington and Falls Road. There's a bus stop on both sides of the road right there, and there's also the Potomac Community Center. So people use that crosswalk to get across from the subdivisions, Woodington and Eldwick Way on the other side, and go across to the Potomac Community Center. I think that crosswalk needs to be looked at in terms of possibly improving it. There's another one down by Bullis School near Tennis Lane that is similar to that one. Again, no sign warning you that there's a crosswalk, just the sign right on the crosswalk itself. So those are 2 things that I wanted to bring to your attention. And then finally on Falls Road, 189, and I've brought this up before too, and I know others have, it really, for the future, would be really beneficial, as I said, to have some pedestrian infrastructure there, pedestrian bike infrastructure, north of toward Wooten Parkway and 270. There are very nice paths that go along Falls Road that maybe were put in by the city of Rockville. I'm not sure. Maybe the county. I think it was the city of Rockville. But anyway, but south there is not even shoulder to walk on or ride the bike on. And there are more bikes using that road. There are even pelotons that come down that road, up and down that road, and it's very narrow. So I would hope that in the future we take a look at that and see if maybe there's something we can do on 189. And then my final issue for this evening is EV permits for EVs to use HOV lanes. I know that this is a federal issue, but this is something that I hear from my constituents that they really, really want. I know it's not within your purview necessarily to do it. I tried to bring legislation last year, but pulled it back because I don't want to, jeopardize highway funding here. But I'm hoping that maybe you can do what you can to to, with your federal partners, if you can still partner with them, to put pressure on them to, to reinstitute that or to allow that. If you do that, and I'm around, I'll be happy to introduce emergency legislation so that we can get that moving in Maryland again. But I just wanted to bring that to your attention. And again, I think that's all I have. I know my colleagues have some other things they want to say, other than I just have to end my presentation by saying White's Ferry, and I'll pass it over to David Fraser-Doggo to pick up on that, or Lily Chi, I'm sorry.
All right. Thank you, Delegate Foley, and good evening, everyone. I know it's been a very long night, so feel free to cut me off after 2 minutes. I'll try to be mindful. Delegate Lily Chi also represented District 15, aka the least walkable or pedestrian-friendly district in Montgomery County, unfortunately. So my remarks tonight will focus on a couple of things. First is the pedestrian safety issue. The other would be roadway maintenance concerns related to driver safety. So on the pedestrian safety issue, which is also biker safety and runner safety, I want to focus on three areas as examples. First is Clarksburg. The crosswalk around Clarksburg High School requires continued attention and additional pedestrian safety measures because, as you probably know, several students over the past several years have been hit, even though there were no deaths, but there were minor injuries. There was an incident in 2022, 2023, then most recently in October of this year, just this month, actually, a student was hit walking out of Clarksburg High School, hit by a vehicle. So specific concerns include the intersection of Maryland 355 and the Wims Road. I know there is one intersection on one side, and I also understand the construction is estimated to start in spring of 2026 as part of the shared use path. But we don't know if it will be on time, if it will be delivered. As I understand, most projects usually, are delayed and go over budget easily on these construction projects. So I hope you would take that into serious consideration. It's a highly populated area. The second example is in Germantown, the intersection of Riffleford Road and Maryland 118. Near the Maryland Soccerplex in Germantown, which is also a high impact and activity area. That area lacks pedestrian infrastructure of any kind, making it difficult for cyclists, pedestrians, and joggers to cross over from their neighborhoods and feeding into that park where the Soccerplex is. And the third is, as Delegate Foley also mentioned, the Falls Road area. In particular, I want to highlight the intersection of Maryland 118, which is Falls Road, at Glenolden Drive. That crosswalk, which is there, is not well signaled, which made it very difficult for some patrons of the public library, Potomac Library, and other neighboring private schools to get to their work or activities. In fact, it was brought to our attention by the ARC Montgomery because some of their participants need to use those facilities and find it difficult to do that. As we understand, a high visibility crosswalk is in the project's queue, so we would like to get some updates on that. So the second concern is the roadway maintenance issues. I'm not going to talk about trash because you already responded about the trash concerns, so I'll table that. But westbound on Shady Grove Road and eastbound on Canal Road, driving from DC to Maryland, there were overgrown trees. There are overgrown trees blocking signage that makes it very unsafe to drive or turn or see. The other is paving in the rural areas because we represent part of the Ag Reserve in District 15. Maryland 119 feeding into Poolsville, Barnesville, Bealsville. Paving for that stretch is very important. So that's all I have to say. Thank you very much.
Good evening. Thank you again for being here and having us present before you in the roadshow. I do agree with what Delegate Xi said, and maybe in the future we could talk about having some time limits on us as speakers. I would be okay with that. But with that said, a couple things I want to go over. Senator Feldman sends his regrets he couldn't be here tonight. He had another schedule. He had a scheduling conflict. a couple things. I know that Chair Corman and many others have spoken about all kinds of things. I don't want to go over them all over again. I will say the Brunswick line is important. As you know, those parking lots are completely full. Germantown, Boyd's, Barnesville, Dickerson. So I won't go over it again. Thank you to Delegate Solomon as well. And 270, I know there's been some conversation about the bridge. I think that Chair Corman hit the nail on the head. We got 10 years. We got to do something one way or another. So let's get to it. That's the American Legion Bridge. A couple of other pieces. White's Ferry. I think that Mr. Conklin did a great job. I know that the state has had some involvement in the past. I know it's very limited. This is a conflict in another state between two private parties in another state. We are making some progress, which I'm excited about. So, stand fast and be ready, because when the time comes, we as a team are going to probably come and ask for a lot of asks, and there are going to be a lot of asks over and over and over again. And I'm asking you right now, when we come, just say, yes, what's next? Yes, what's next? Yes, what's next? So a couple of big thank yous. I think it's important to talk about some of the big thank yous. I know that we at Westfield Baltimore and 121, we had an issue about a year ago where it was built, Cabin Branch was built, there's 3,700 homes, a lot of construction vehicles going on up there. And there was an issue in that circle just from a purely engineering perspective. When a car or a truck goes into that circle, as it goes around that circle, all that energy drives right into the asphalt. And it was creating these big, divots, dangerous divots. I called you all, I asked for some help. And I think within a week, you had a crew out there, or you had the contractors have a crew out there, completely redid that entire circle, and it's beautiful now. So that's a big thank you to Mr. Gunn. I'm sure that had a lot to do with you, because you sent an engineer out, and I walked it with an engineer. We walked it inch by inch and went over it. It was really cool. With that said, on the other side, going toward Clarksburg, just outside that circle, that side didn't get a couple of little divots that are turning into something more. Also, Westall Baltimore and Baltimore, I'm sorry, that's that intersection. Old Buck Lodge and Buck Lodge, I called a month ago, because that intersection had overgrowth that was dangerous. I think it was 2 days later, you guys cut it all down. There was an accident at that intersection because of the growth. Within 2 days, you were out there, you cut it all down. So big thank you to Sean over there behind me. I often text him randomly in the middle of the night about EV tax credits or where we are with how many EVs have been registered in the state of Maryland, and that dude is on it. So thank you, Sean. A couple of other asks, kind of small ones to put on the radar, but I want to get them on the radar. There's a Buddhist temple on River Road, the KPC temple, and they are bifurcated. One side has a facility and a beautiful facility, and then they have 63 acres on the other side, which is walking. It's beautiful over there, but it would be good if we could do some kind of study to figure out how to get some kind of crosswalk. It's not a lot of traffic, but it is some traffic, and it's a high speed. That part is a big, long stretch. It's very fast. It's not unusual for cars to go 50, 60 miles an hour through that area very, very quickly, and it's not unusual for there to be kids or people that are older crossing, just walking right across River Road. So if we could do something to address that, that would be good. There's also a place in Poolesville, as you all probably know, or maybe you don't. Poolesville is growing, and there's some development in Poolesville. There's more people. There's probably of need one or two more crosswalks just to kind of hold that place together. And lastly, which is what I should have started with, is for those that don't know, District 15 is kind of defined as the river all the way up to the Frederick County line, including a big piece of Potomac and all the way through Poolesville, parts of Clarksburg, parts of Germantown, Boyd's, Barnesville, Bellsville, Dickerson, and all in between. And with that said, I think I got all of my points across, and I am happy to hear answers for the team, and thank you for being here.
Thank you all so much to our maybe penultimate group up for tonight. Thanks for hanging in there with us, and certainly we want to be as detail oriented with you all as we've tried to be with everyone else so far this evening. But anything that we're not able to provide updates on tonight, of course, we will always follow up with you. Great to hear the responsiveness. I'm sure Derek is looking to beat his own record for the tree trimming heading down on River Road maybe tomorrow to take a look for where those branches are that are obscuring the signs that Delegate Chi mentioned. But I think most of our follow-ups and questions were largely with the state highway crew. So, any updates that you have on some of these specific intersections, and do truly appreciate the, flagging that we have pedestrian and bicyclist needs, even in areas where we do not have as much density or the context is different. And I think the good news is that we have a great team at State Highway who wants to work to try to find the solutions that can work and benefit your communities as well.
Okay, a couple of points, and then I'll kick it to Derek for some of the details there. One is on the HOV lanes. There is actually, at the federal level, a bill that is under consideration right now, S2922, that's in progress. So there's an opportunity to weigh in. It does exactly what you're asking for, which is a HOV Lane Exemption Reauthorization Act, and it would include Maryland. So I don't know if that will pass or not, but that is in the works, just as an FYI.
Great, thank you.
You're welcome. In relation to crosswalks, we have significantly advanced our maturity with crosswalks in the last few years. We had our asset management team actually go out and do an inventory of all of the crosswalks, whether they are marked or unmarked, and we have a GIS layer that documents all of that to help us strategically advance crosswalks statewide. I set a target for the team to do at least 500 crosswalks across the state each year, and we're almost have accomplished 2,000 crosswalks in the last 2 years as a consequence of that work. So there's a lot of good things happening in the crosswalk front. I heard all of you say you want more crosswalks. We will take a look at those locations, specifically around schools and other areas. Sometimes crosswalks, where they get to be challenging for us, is when it starts to trigger ADA improvements that then triggers utility relocations, and then they snowball into very large projects. So we try to hit all of the quick wins as fast as possible, but certainly can take a look at the locations you referenced. Derek, any thoughts on specifics?
I might keep it macro. To Administrator Pines' point, with that milestone target of 500, I believe it was last year District 3 was able to do our share, and we were able to make that milestone independently. So we're looking at crosswalk needs along within the county. I'll check in with the traffic engineering team to see where we are with some of those specific locations. There were several mentioned, and maybe if I can recommend, or if it's being respectful of the time of your time, maybe have a follow-up discussion with the delegation.
Absolutely. And again, thank you. I mean, I think that the term of the night is crosswalk, right? Delegate Solomon gave an impassioned speech about this, and so the more we can prevent, the better off we all are. So thank you.
One last point I forgot to mention: White's Ferry. Don't want that to leave the room. I don't know if we can
That's a hard
just
one.
be ready to do everything all
White's
at once
Ferry.
immediately, but we have been actively working with the county to have good advancement of that, and we're poised and ready to see if there are things that we can help on.
There's some quiet movement, so which is really exciting. I think kind of putting a deadline on our level of our patience, putting a deadline to the people that are involved, all the actors are involved, saying, okay, we're done playing this game. We've been playing this game for 5 years. I think that's been helpful.
Yeah,
So-
when we looked at it, actually bringing in Virginia and Maryland as a state gets you into some legality type issues at the federal level that makes it worse than the counties working it out. So we've been working through that and are
Appreciate
here
it.
ready to help how we can.
And also, I think it's helpful if there's a helpful partner, and there hasn't always been like a super excited helpful partner on the other side of the river. So, thank you.
We thank you for being a helpful partner. We thank Mr. Conklin for his dedication as well.
It's wonderful to see you. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you all. So our next district would have been District 39. Delegate Wims was here earlier, but I think had to head out, and I don't see anyone else from that district. And we were not expecting our colleagues from District 9A since they represent a split district. I think they were likely up at the event in Howard County. So last district, District 17, Senator Kagan, Delegate Spiegel, and myself. And for efficiency's sake, I'm just going to kick things off while my colleagues join at the table up there. First of all, I just want to uplift the remarks that we heard from our representatives from the municipalities in our district, Rockville and Gaithersburg, in terms of their asks and concerns, and especially their thanks for some of the bicyclists and pedestrian safety projects that are in the CTP. On that front, I did want to ask a question in regards to the pedestrian safety action plan. It was great to join earlier this year for the groundbreaking of the New Hampshire project, but I'm just curious for the projects that aren't in rounds 1 or 2 of the PSAP, what kind of time frame we might be thinking about, especially for the project for 355, because that is in our district. And then I also just wanted to ask 2 other questions tonight. One is to uplift the letter that representatives from District 17 and 39, including my colleagues, signed and sent earlier this year in regards to ICC signage and just advertising that there is a terminus in Gaithersburg and Rockville. I don't think we've received a response to that letter yet. And then lastly, a question in regards to county's local bus funding. I did see that it's proposed that funding for that program is going to be cut by half, recognizing there's budget constraints, but then it really caught my attention on the very next page that Prince George's County funding is increasing by 50%. So I'd love to get some insights in terms of the funding decisions on that front. And otherwise, I will turn it over to my colleagues.
Okay, good evening, and I guess almost good morning. Madam Chair, Mr. Chair, Madam Secretary, members of the leadership team, thank you so much for being here. Delegate Ryan Spiegel from District 17. I have to start briefly by shouting out my time about 14 years ago on the Gaithersburg City Council when we brought a whole herd of eco goats into the city of Gaithersburg to clear out invasive species. It was really cool. If anybody wants to talk more about it offline, I'm happy to. In all seriousness, I want to start by noting how responsive the MDOT team has been on constituent issues. When my office has reached out, I know other members have mentioned the same thing this evening, and we just really appreciate your thorough, high-quality work when it comes to those constituent requests and concerns. As a member of the Appropriation Committee's subcommittee on transportation, along with Delegate Solomon, who was here earlier, I want to say I'm proud of the committee's work and really the work of the entire General Assembly on the budget this year to ensure hundreds of millions of dollars in additional support for transportation projects and to shore up the Transportation Trust Fund for maintenance and state of good repair, which I know some of you referenced earlier. That said, I, along with many others, remain concerned about the long-term health of state transportation funding, especially when it comes to having funds for new large capital projects and expansions beyond just maintenance and upkeep. And I want to encourage MDOT and its member agencies to take a careful look at efforts to explore regional transportation authorities that have worked in places like Northern Virginia to allow regional bodies to generate additional revenue and advance regionally important transportation projects that otherwise cannot be funded under the current state budget situation. And I know it's always hard to think about major structural changes to the unique funding model that we have here in Maryland of centralized state management and centralized funding of major projects. But the competition for limited resources and other administrative challenges really means that many important projects across the state have unfortunately stalled. And so I just wanted to bring that up and would be happy to engage in follow-up discussions with any of you on this concept of regional transportation authorities as one potential approach that I think has promise. Also, as chair of our County House Delegations Committee on Transportation and Public Safety, I deal with a lot of local bills on road safety and pedestrian concerns, which we've heard so much about this evening. So I am also particularly interested in MDOT's strategic highway safety plan, as we have seen some truly troubling driver behavior. And of course, as others have mentioned, a number of high-profile tragic vehicle collisions around the state over the last couple of years. But I do want to thank you for your earlier remarks reflecting MDOT's commitment to safety. As for District 17 specific projects in the draft CTP, I just want to check off a few to mention. First, I mostly just want to say ditto to the comments of representatives for the cities of Rockville and Gaithersburg. Thank you for including funding in the Kim Lampier Bikeways Network program, named in memory of a friend of ours and longtime biking advocate, particularly funding for the I-270 NIST shared use path, which has been making progress, and also the Rockville Bike Ped Counters Project, both in District 17. Under the Transportation Alternatives Program, thank you for including bike and pedestrian route improvements as well. Also want to thank you for funding safety and resurfacing improvements along 355 in Gaithersburg from Brooks Avenue to Montgomery Village, which is in the draft CTP, another important project, and for funding sidewalk improvements on North Stone Street Avenue in Rockville. And I just want to say a couple things about that project. That's in a historic African-American community called Lincoln Park here in Rockville. And we are working with community stakeholders and all levels of government to make meaningful progress in what is a historically underinvested, disinvested, walled-off area of the city for long overdue connectivity projects in conjunction with some other adaptive reuse and historic preservation and other redevelopment plans. So that's a particularly important one, so thank you for that. And of course, in general, thank you for your continued attention to dedicated bus infrastructure projects in the Mid-County, including planned bus rapid transit on Route 355. Hopefully, we will be making progress in the coming years on that. I have one interesting, quirky kind of issue that I want to raise about noise barriers along I-270 in Rockville. We have an ongoing issue near Nelson Street in Rockville's West End area. And as background, there's a relatively small gap in an otherwise existing sound barrier along that part of I-270 North, and it's been a recurring concern among our constituents, particularly those who live in the area of Anderson, Beale, and Carr Avenues, where highway noise remains a significant quality of life issue because of that gap in the sound wall. And based on SHA's own noise study conducted as part of the 495-270 corridor evaluation, that community has been determined eligible for noise mitigation, and our delegation has been following up on this matter for the past couple years. But SHA has indicated that while the area was approved for type 1 noise barriers, the construction can only proceed as part of the larger I-270 Phase 1 South corridor project. And as you well know, current funding is not available for that larger project. And I realize the reason to have the sound barrier portion remain part of the larger project is to access federal matching funds. But the challenge is to consider whether there's any way in certain circumstances to decouple projects like this, which would have a clear impact on the community's well-being, and make it into potentially a standalone project rather than being tied exclusively to the timeline of a major corridor project that isn't currently moving, when it's deemed to be something worth pursuing sooner rather than later. So I'd be happy to have more conversations offline about that as well. And then finally, as a former MML president and as a representative of two large cities in Maryland, I would be remiss if I did not take the opportunity to reiterate what others have said, highlighting how absolutely critical highway user revenue, or HUR, funds are to our local governments. It's essential that we continue to make good on updated HUR funding formulas meant to restore a program which was decimated during the Great Recession, for which local governments really have never been fully made whole. But at least we can help ensure that they'll receive their fair share of HUR funding in the foreseeable future. And even though we knew these were coming as a result of legislative sunsets, the proposed cuts to HUR, I believe, represent a backslide in that effort. So I hope we can get back to a place where we don't leave municipal governments shortchanged, and we can, again, have conversations offline about that. So with that, thank you again for all you do, for your patience this evening, for being here, and we look forward to continuing to work together on these important issues.
I've got the coolest delegates. Delegate Joe Vogel sends his regrets. He couldn't be with us, but the four of us are united. I'm Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville. I sometimes describe our district as up 270 or up the red line. The third and fourth largest cities comprise our district, and we have a lot of issues. There's some folks who say, oh, must suck to go last, but I actually love batting cleanup, and I get to hear from all of my brilliant colleagues from around the county, and it fascinates me because we are ideologically similar. We are all representing Montgomery County, And yet we're also kind of myopic and focused on our own districts and the transportation issues that affect our neighborhoods. So with that, I think I'm not going to repeat virtually anything that anyone else has brought up. I have to give a shout out to Abril Hunter on my staff for making sure that while I was listening to Senator Corey McCrae's book talk at the Rockville Library, that I didn't miss anything. So I think I'm going to be clear here. And thank you, Delegate Plakowicz-Carr, Senator Kramer, for chairing this and for all you do as our delegation chairs. I told Administrator Nizer that tonight is always the We Love Chrissy Nizer and the MVA is awesome and it's the Love Fest. So I will start with the MVA, but I have more love for some of the rest of you. So Chrissy Nizer and I have, she's practically on speed dial, and we have worked together on everything from obscured license plate, and I really want to commend the pilot program that you started that we then amplified through legislation that is now law. And now the latest conversation is about cars that don't take front license plates. And I literally was having lunch with a member of the Senate President's staff, and I said, I bet in that parking lot right there, blah, blah. And I counted, and of the 15 cars in Gaithersburg at a small lot, three of them had three different ways of dealing with no front license plate. And so took the pictures, forwarded them to her. One was a car that literally had no space for a front license plate, and so they had none. That's violation of the state law, which requires front and back. The second had one drilled, like had it added, which was a cost. It was off-centered. Does the speed camera, the red light camera, amber alert, silver alert, would that be able to identify this car? And the third had it on their windshield, which presumably is completely useless, but as their effort to try to comply. So we've been thinking about how we can sort of not weaken the laws, but also not expect people to make a superhuman effort. And we have learned that Nevada and Wyoming have already taken action, and others, so we're in conversation. So I appreciate, as always, your collaboration. Got to give a shout out to my longtime buddy, Bruce Gartner, you and Will Pines on lighting. Mr. Pines, you've been so responsive when we had continuous problems on 270 at Falls Road. Bruce, Gartner, ICC, I have to, third year in a row, I think, talk about the really frustrating lack of cell signal. If you guys had a bingo card, is Kagan going to mention this? Damn right I'm going to mention this. Yeah, there you go. Third time. But I appreciated your check-in about it. We sent a letter. There was a hearing last week. The vote will happen, I understand, in a couple of weeks in November. I am really hoping that we're going to move forward and have a tower installed in a way that our constituents and everyone from that area, while they are paying to drive on the ICC, can make a damn phone call without any fear of it dropping. I can't tell you the number of times when I have chosen to do down 270 around the Beltway and up 95 just so I could be on a Zoom or a conference call that was important and I didn't want to risk it. So there is at least a little bit fiscal impact in addition to just, it's just annoying. So, so lighting on 270 continues to be a problem. And ICC signage I amplify what Delegate Plakowicz-Carr said. The letter, Gaithersburg City Council member Jim McNulty, and let's give him the shout out. He's been on this for years. I think it's a great idea to let people know that from an economic development and accuracy perspective, that the ICC westbound, will take them to Gaithersburg, which is a great place to go out and spend money. Graffiti partnership. Well, you've been great on that. Thank you. The city of Rockville, the county, and unfortunately the state has had to step in on graffiti. And so thank you for being a partner on that. I heard what you said about litter. I totally understand about mowing and all that. signage does come out to be a safety, and I do think that there are places where it is problematic. Literally, we can't see whether it's north or south on the sign, or we can't see. And I realize that we are in fiscally challenging times, but I don't know the best way to consider this, whether there can be a website, sort of your nominations for where it's, you know, a safety issue, but I do think there are areas around the state that are seriously problematic on faded signage. BWI, Ms. Griffin, congratulations on your ascension. Ricky Smith was a great partner in so many ways. I'm going to prop up. I'm astonished by what Delegate Charkoudian said, so thank you for agreeing to look into that with Avello. Signage in the parking lots about availability of bathrooms is something that he was working on. I'm not sure that that has been completed, I think from a customer service perspective, because our airport is fantastic and we ought to be bragging about it, and BWI is a place we want folks to have a great experience from the time they pull in to the time they leave. 988 signage is something I think I brought up last year, both at our MVA places as well as BWI airports. Any place that MDOT has a space, I would love for us to have signage on 988. And I know I do 911 all the time, but everybody knows 911. We've got all the issues that remain there, but too many people still don't know that 988 is the suicide and mental health crisis hotline. So saying it here, it's been in effect now 3 years, August, and people are unaware. So let's see what we can do to amplify that if we can. Charlie Scott is in the audience. He's not on the dais. I think it would be a crime not to give him some serious love as well. He practically is on my speed dial. I actually call him a lot, and he's always responsive. Charlie, again, 988 signage for you too. And I don't know what the protocol is on him speaking, but I have heard about the Marine Corps Marathon and the disaster in WMATA yesterday, with hundreds of people stranded in Roslyn and elsewhere, and outages and problems. So not my district, not my county, not my state, but what if it had been the Gaithersburg Book Festival or Rockville's Hometown Holidays? Sort of it could have happened here. And so I don't know what again, Madam Acting Secretary, congratulations. I don't know what the protocol is of Charlie speaking to us on those, but that. And then the last thing I just want to mention that I got a text from someone talking about the widening of 270 and that the next step might be in 3029, which seemed about right. So I appreciated the typo. I thought the Hogan tolling plan was irresponsible and done without enough collaboration or thoughtfulness. It didn't acknowledge the reduced traffic based on post-COVID work patterns and so much more. Environmental impact, I just thought there was a lot of thought that was not invested. And so I appreciate the go slow, be thoughtful, and do it, look at it in chunks, because it did not work well for residents of Rockville and Gaithersburg who can not afford crazy tolls that are in Northern Virginia and elsewhere. So with that, eager to hear responses. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much to the District 17 team. Lots to cover there. Maybe we can handle them kind of in order. Administrator Pines talk a little bit about timing of some of those PSAP corridors. And then I think I'm trying to remember, Senator Keegan, if the Nelson Street corridor is one that we have walked in the past before on the sound barrier for the sound walls, or if that was closer to Woodley Gardens, but certainly understand the concept that you've pointed out, Delegate, in terms of the broader project and the type 1. So that may be one where we follow up with you, more, but I just want to make sure I'm tracking that section of the corridor there, but we'll turn it over to Will to start. Thanks.
Sure. So on the PSAP timeline, when PSAP round 3 will be announced coming soon, I actually have a meeting scheduled with my team on November 6th to review the proposed corridors We are in the process, somebody once, I can't remember who tonight, brought up the strategic highway safety plan. We've been in the process of updating the vulnerable road user report, which is an attachment within the highway safety plan. So the data that was collected for that is being evaluated to provide the next round of corridors. So our goal is to regularly have a pipeline where we have some projects going out in 26, 27, 28. And as I indicated earlier, they're going to be targeted to be very focused on safety, countermeasure improvements at targeted locations where we know we have a history of issues. So I would expect we're likely end of the year, early next year, we'll publish the next round of corridors that'll be part of round 3. And those are data-driven decisions, really looking at, we talked tonight about utilizing predictive data as much as possible, but these corridors are already very dangerous. The Maryland 650 corridor has 14 times higher than the statewide average fatal records. So that's the kind of corridors that we're targeting for improvement where there's been a lot of fatalities. So coming soon on that one. The ICC signing letter, my team has drafted a letter of response. I have not had the opportunity to review that yet. That's in my court, but I'll get back to you very shortly on that request. On the type 2 noise barriers on I-270. So you hit the nail on the head that the funding that was slated to do the work was as part of the wider American Legion Bridge 270 program, which originally was to go up to 370. Type 2 noise walls are not funded across the state. We don't apply state funding to do that. What does that mean? Type 1 is where the corridor was built and a noise analysis was done, and when typically the properties predated when that original construction came through. Type 2, most typically, either the property didn't qualify for noise at the time when the wall was built, or it was built after the original wall was built. So that typically triggers type 2, where the analysis will show, hey, this type 2 today meets the noise levels to where it can qualify. But we do have many, many areas around the Baltimore Beltway and Capital Beltway where those types of requests are common. We typically do wait for the larger capital projects. And again, it's for the same reason you noted, the federal funding that is there to be able to support that. And the last comment I'll make, I think a lot said there on I-270. We do have some corridor-based contracts that are planned to deal with lighting. Originally in the 270 corridor, that was also part of the P3 program as a wider whole. We're starting to do some breakout projects. Some of the corridor improvements are further north in 270, up near the Frederick area and throughout, but we're identifying kind of the areas where, from a life cycle perspective and the asset data that we have, are in greatest need, and we're working in that program. On the 988 signage, we do have a memo in. Senator Waldstreicher sent in a request to us to provide advertisements on the overhead DMS signs. Not to bring up the MUTCD again, but that manual does not allow it, and it's straight up forward, but we don't want to make that call. We actually put it to Federal Highway directly and asked them to weigh in, and they are going to be giving us a letter of response here shortly. I've talked to the division administrator, and she says it's imminent. So we'll be providing feedback on whether or not they sound like they're trying to be creative to help us figure out something there. So we are working on that issue as well.
That would be great.
Thanks, Administrator. I know Administrator Neiser has also made advancements on 988 in our branch offices. Talk a little bit about that, and then maybe a quick plug for the Strategic Highway Safety Plan. I know a lot of work has gone into this, both through your office and working with many of the modes and other local stakeholders.
Sure. Thank you, Secretary. We do advertise the 988 in our branch offices. As many are aware, we have flat screens. We advertise things. Even though you're there for a very short period of time, you do get a glimpse of a rotating series of informational things, and 988 is part of that. So we will continue to promote that with our customers. Also, in terms of the Strategic Highway Safety Plan, thank you for your interest. It is a living document to us, and it is truly meaningful. We are in the process of updating it as is required by the federal government, but it is also something that we take seriously. And so once we have that updated by the end of the year, we will take that forward to the local jurisdictions, so I know have developed their own plans. Just make sure everything syncs up. We are seeing great reductions in fatalities, but as we heard tonight, it's just one fatality that is meaningful and personal to the person who lost that individual. So we're not going to rest until we reach 0 fatalities, and it's a team effort to get there, and we'll continue in that good work. I think that's all for me, right?
License plate.
Thank you.
License plate.
Oh, license plate. I'm so sorry.
Come on.
We're going to work. I committed to Senator. We have a meeting coming up with the Dealers Association, so we're going to prompt them in terms of the responsibility to ensure that the 2-plate standard is met. I know that is important not only to law enforcement, but to automatic enforcement cameras and making sure that our drivers are abiding by the appropriate laws. So we will have that conversation. I will circle back with you in terms of the issues of readability, location, and vehicles that don't, for whatever reason, have a appropriate placards location on them. Thank you.
All right, thanks so much. Close us out a little bit on kind of the funding topic that you raised. I think you hit the nail on the head with what we're able to accomplish with the new revenues, and we are truly grateful and do feel as though they established a good baseline for us in terms of core safety and state of repair. But even as Administrator Pines noted in some of his remarks earlier, we still have a ways to go in terms of making sure that we're addressing even things like pavement at that level where we are, maintaining and exceeding that quality. So certainly there have been a lot of conversations over the past few years on the future of transportation funding. Taking on those larger capital projects is a piece of it. The sustainability on the operating budget side is also a big piece, as well as just a lot of the safety and state of repair work, making sure that we have the way to move that forward. That goes for the projects that we at the department advance forward, as well as those that local governments advance through the highway user revenue funds as well. So as we're thinking about the future of the Transportation Trust Fund and the sustainability of it, I think those are a lot of the pieces that will be brought together, and certainly we know that there will be more conversations to come. Appreciate you and your work on the subcommittee and being a part of helping us advance this program that's in front of us here today. I will ask Administrator Arnold. I know there was a question on some of the LOTS funding. I think I'm not sure if we want to follow up on that one just to make sure that we're looking at exactly the right numbers. Do want to also acknowledge Administrator Arnold's team has also done some 988 signage work as well with her stations, but we'll turn it over to you as well.
Yeah, I'm going to have to follow up specifically on that. Looking at the cash flow, I think it is just a cash flow issue. Like when the buses come in is when we fund the money and have it shown. In addition, Prince George's County has won a few discretionary grants recently for electric buses, so I think that's why theirs is a lot higher, but I want to follow up on that just to confirm what that answer is. And yes, 988 is something that we are very passionate about. We have installed signage at all of our stations. We also offer mental health first aid for all, it's voluntary, but for all of our employees, and a number of our operators have taken us up on that so that they can engage and help when needed. So definitely happy to share more on that.
That's great. Thank you. That's great to share. I did not want to overlook Administrator Griffin on the 988 piece as well. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And first off, thank you for acknowledging my new position. 7 months in, and I'm still learning a lot every day. I did want to say I want to thank you also for identifying that traveler experience. That's certainly one of my goals of how do we increase that travel experience, and signage is very much that. So we are reviewing, we have a signage plan that was done a few years ago for us. We're reviewing that right now to try and see where we can improve signage. We're looking at the fact that we've got 7 generations of passengers that are coming through the airport. Mm-hmm. So all of this, we need to cater to all of them in regards to travel experience. So you will hear more in regards to that in our parking lots and in other locations in regards to signage, but thank you for identifying the travel experience because it's very important to us. Thank you.
Thank you. What about Charlie?
I think we're going to take that one offline.
Take that one offline. Okay.
Defer to the chairs. Yeah. Thank you. We'll take that one offline. Thank you. All right. All right, thank you to my district mates. Before I turn it over to Senator Kramer to close us out, I'll just say thank you. It's been a long evening. Thank you to listening to all of the concerns and questions from our delegation. I do just want to put a plug in for the listening public. I think we peaked at 36 viewers earlier this evening. The delegation next convenes on November 17th for our annual priorities hearing. So this is community members' opportunities to testify orally or written before the delegation. Signups are happening currently. You can do that on the delegation website, montgomerycountydelegation.com. And I will turn it over to Senator Kramer.
Secretary Biddle, thank you so very, very much for visiting us here in Montgomery County tonight. Thank you again for an outstanding team that is always very responsive to all of us, and that is very, very much appreciated. So once again, you all have a wonderful remainder of what this evening exists, and thank you again. Very much appreciated. Be well.